Lamidjan, Adventurers Guild, upper quarters. Late into the night, when most of the guild had settled into silence, a single room atop the building still glowed with warm candlelight. Inside, a young woman in elegant, military-style attire worked diligently at her desk, the soft scratching of her quill the only sound in the room. Her beauty was striking, poised and graceful, with a quiet brilliance in her eyes. Her glasses didn't hide her features. They enhanced them, lending her an air of sharp intellect and quiet authority. If she were from Earth, she'd no doubt be an overnight internet sensation. The kind of brilliant professor you'd see trending online for both her looks and her mind. There was something about her composed demeanor that made one instinctively want to seek her counsel, or think twice before arguing with her. That atmosphere was gently broken by a knock at the door. "Come in," she said calmly, not looking up from her work. The door creaked open, and another girl entered at a measured pace. "You're still up, Riley," came the soft voice of the visitor, gentle, warm, and deeply kind. As the light reached her face, it matched her tone perfectly. She had the look of someone who would bring flowers to the sick and smile at stray animals. And yet, she wore a full suit of heavy plate armor. An enormous tower shield rested on her back, and a slender knight's sword hung at her hip. The metal clinked with every step, giving away the sheer weight of her gear. She looked less like a gentle, noble woman and more like a general ready to lead a charge. Riley finally looked up, a faint sigh escaping her lips. "I see you're still clinging to that armor, Vivian." The weariness in her voice suggested this wasn't the first time they'd had this conversation. Vivian, undeterred, offered a warm smile. "I won't give it up," she said in that ever-soft tone. "I've told you before. I want to be a knight who shields her friend from all harm. So this armor, this shield, they stay." Though her tone was as polite as ever, her words were firm. Riley knew better than to argue. She had, many times before, and it never went anywhere. "This really doesn't suit your image, you know," Riley muttered, resting her cheek in her hand. Vivian giggled. "I like it just fine." Their dynamic was familiar, warm, a quiet kind of sisterhood built over years. The small talk drifted for a while before Riley finally got to the point. "Actually, I called you here for something." She passed Vivian a piece of parchment. "What's this?" Vivian asked curiously. "A report from one of the guild clerks," Riley said, tapping her desk. "Apparently, we had a rather unusual newcomer register today, and no one knew what to do with him. So it landed on my desk." "A newcomer?" Vivian skimmed the document. Her brows lifted. "A 20-year-old, level 10, and not a single skill." Riley gave her a meaningful look. "It's not a mistake. Several adventurers saw his results on the magic tester. We double-checked the device, no malfunctions. It's real." Vivian blinked. "That is strange." "I thought so too." Riley picked up her quill and pointed at the recorded data. "It's not like he's untalented. Reaching level 10 means he's seen combat. But no skills? None? What do you think?" Vivian fell into thought, then slowly raised 3 fingers. "3 possibilities," she said thoughtfully. "First, he's walking the wrong path. Maybe he has a mage's affinity, but keeps training with a sword. So his level rises, but he never triggers the right skill set. Second, he might have had some kind of setback, an illness, a curse, or a personal crisis that kept him from learning or training until recently. His growth could have only started now. And third," Vivian hesitated, voice lowering slightly, "he might have something special, a unique skill, something outside the magic tester's range." Riley nodded slowly. Those were the same thoughts she'd had herself. But neither of them voiced a fourth, far more unlikely possibility, that the newcomer's skills were too advanced to be detected. Skills above level 7 didn't register on standard magic testers. But to reach that level usually required an adventurer to be near level 70, or else an absurd commitment to a single skill from a young age, ignoring all others. For someone to reach level 7 in a skill while still at level 10? Unheard of. Even the divine-blooded or demon-born didn't pull that off. So naturally, that theory wasn't even considered. Still, the oddities were enough to spark curiosity. Whatever the case, Riley concluded, He's worth keeping an eye on. Vivian raised an eyebrow, a knowing smile creeping onto her face. You're planning to send him to my team again, aren't you? Riley returned the smile, playful now. As expected of Vivian. You always catch on. Vivian sighed, a little exasperated, but not surprised. Lamidjan, Adventurers Guild. Though Vivian wasn't the strongest adventurer in Lamidjan, she was without a doubt the most respected. Not only was she the captain of one of the top-performing adventurer teams, but every single member of that team had once been a lost, uncertain newcomer, taken in, trained, and nurtured under Vivian's wing. Thanks to her guidance, they had risen to become some of Lamidjan's finest. Her influence extended far beyond her party. Gentle, patient, endlessly kind, and approachable, Vivian had mentored countless fledgling adventurers, many of whom had gone on to distinguish themselves in other towns and regions. Her name carried weight not just in Lamidjan, but across surrounding cities. And it wasn't just her achievements that made people speak of her like a living legend. A beautiful young woman clad in imposing heavy armor, wielding a tower shield larger than most grown men, who dedicated her life to protecting her allies. In the eyes of many, Vivian wasn't just an adventurer. She was a goddess. That was why Riley, an old friend and trusted colleague, often turned to her when the Adventurers Guild was faced with the unusual, the unpredictable, or the simply problematic. Whenever an uncertain case arose, be it a tricky mission or a mysterious newcomer, Riley always knew who to call. This time was no different. Though this particular case wasn't exactly earth-shaking, there was still potential. The newcomer was strange, perhaps even unique. You know as well as I do, Riley said, her tone shifting from light to serious, that unique and special skills often far exceed the utility of conventional ones. Even if they're not combat-oriented, they can change a person's fate entirely. Vivian nodded quietly, listening as Riley continued. Some of the most influential figures in the kingdom aren't warriors at all. Take the two current royal court advisors. They're both under level 10, and neither has a single combat skill to their name. And yet, both were irreplaceable. One possessed a unique skill that amplified the success rate of the tame ability tenfold, making it possible to domesticate powerful beasts, flying dragons included. Thanks to him, the royal cavalry now boasted an aerial division. The other could accelerate the growth of plants and magical herbs. His skill had revolutionized agriculture and potion-making, turning the Mitra kingdom into a hub for grain exports and alchemical production. They weren't strong, Riley said, but they were invaluable. That's why the kingdom, and the guild, keep close track of individuals who show signs of awakening unique or special skills. And that's why Shane's report ended up on your desk, Vivian deduced. Riley nodded. Exactly. He might just be a late bloomer, or he might be something more. We can't know until someone gets close enough to observe him properly. That someone, naturally, was going to be Vivian. Vivian wasn't opposed to mentoring newcomers. Far from it. In fact, she had once taken pride in guiding young adventurers. But lately, things had changed. The strange results of Shane's magic aptitude test had already spread through the guild. A level 10 adventurer with 0 skills? Many had already written him off as defective. If he were placed in any other party, he'd likely be ridiculed, ignored, or outright rejected. In that context, placing him with Vivian was the safest and kindest option. Riley had clearly gone out of her way to set this up. Even if it was partly driven by interest in Shane's potential, there was no denying that it took effort and a little faith to make such arrangements for someone who might very well turn out to be talentless. Maybe Riley was just a bit too kind herself. Still, there was one minor issue. Vivian let out a small sigh. It's been a long time since a male joined my party. This could be troublesome. Riley gave her a wry look. I know, but there's no one else I trust with this. Vivian's party had a reputation of its own. Every single member, Vivian included, was a talented, powerful, and stunningly beautiful female adventurer that had made them the target of unwanted attention more than once. Vivian had formed her team precisely to create a safe, empowering space for other women, especially those who were both gifted and vulnerable to the wrong kind of attention. But the guild's history wasn't spotless. Riley remembered well. There had been incidents. Male recruits with potential, but lacking integrity, had once joined her team, only to later try and take advantage of their companions. The fallout had been ugly. Since then, Vivian had refused to allow any male adventurers into her team, no matter how promising they seemed. Unless, of course, she had no choice. "You're really putting me in a difficult spot here, Riley." Riley didn't miss a beat. "If TL's around, and he tries anything, we'll do what we did before." She spoke without emotion. "Break his limbs and revoke his license." Vivian blinked, a bit taken aback by the bluntness. "Harsh." "Fair," Riley countered. Vivian thought it over for a long moment, then finally gave a reluctant nod. "All right, I'll take him." And just like that, the wheels of fate turned. The strange adventurer named Shane had found himself a place, whether he was ready for it or not.
Hey, welcome to Firescale Audiobooks. If you enjoy our audiobooks, please consider subscribing to the channel. Also, feel free to share your review in the comments section below.
The next day, early morning, at the break of dawn, Shane was already awake. It wasn't because Shane was good at waking up early, but during those 10 days of survival in the forest, Shane had developed the habit of getting up as soon as it got light. In the wild, even wishing for a comfortable sleep was extremely difficult. During those 10 days, Shane almost woke up at the slightest rustle or light, causing him to wake up early now. Luckily, last night's sleep had been extremely comfortable for Shane. It's indeed the most comfortable to sleep in a bed. Shane felt quite content. Thus, Shane got up early to wash up and clean himself, then prepared to head to the Adventurers Guild. Because this world didn't have toothbrushes or toothpaste, people seemed to use a tooth-whittling stick and some unknown powder to brush their teeth. Not accustomed to these, Shane had to invest some effort to complete his morning wash. Then, Shane put on the clean clothes he had bought yesterday and packed up the bundle containing the holy sword, preparing for the adventure ahead. Looking at himself in the otherworld attire, plus carrying the long-shaped bundle, Shane couldn't help but marvel. With this, no one would doubt that I'm an otherworldly person. Now, Shane's appearance bore no visible traits of an otherworldly person, seemingly entirely native to this world, quite fitting with its style. "Well, it's not bad at all." Shane smiled, then left his room, heading towards the Adventurers Guild. The morning in Lemidgen was bustling, just like yesterday. Even though it was just past dawn, the streets were already filled with various people moving around, causing the shops and stalls to ring with shouts, attracting many passers-by. Fully armed adventurers mingled among the crowds, heading in groups from the direction of the Adventurers Guild, seemingly preparing to leave the city for work. Shane watched this scene while making his way to the Adventurers Guild alongside other adventurers with the same destination. Before long, the plaza where the Adventurers Guild was located appeared before Shane. Together with numerous adventurers, Shane entered the Adventurers Guild, stepping into the guild hall he had visited the day before. Perhaps because it was still early, many adventurer teams were still gathering and choosing the day's commissions, making the guild hall even more bustling than yesterday. Shane passed through the crowd, heading toward the counter where yesterday's guild staff had been. At this moment, the staff was working, seemingly explaining something to several adventurers. However, upon seeing Shane arrive, they promptly waved him over. Shane immediately approached them. "Sorry, I'm late." Just to be polite, Shane apologized to them. "No, you're just in time." The guild staff politely smiled and then said, "The members of the adventurer team you're assigned to are just assembled. If you have no issues, you can report now." "Got it," Shane nodded and asked, "Where are they?" "They're on the second floor. Please take that staircase." The guild staff pointed toward the staircase and guided Shane. "After going up, another guild staff will guide you. Just tell them you are there to meet Miss Vivian." "Vivian?" Shane was a bit surprised. That was clearly a girl's name, right? Could it be that the adventurer team he was joining was led by a girl? Might it be another cliched encounter with a beautiful adventurer girl? Shane pondered in his heart. Shane didn't notice the adventurers around him pointing and murmuring at him. "Is it him?" "Yes, it's him." Who would have thought? Even now, a male adventurer could join Miss Vivian's adventurer team. It's only temporary. In the end, He'll have to quietly stay for 1 month like others before leaving, right? If he can behave, he might stay for a month. If not, precisely. Such conversations occurred amongst the adventurers around. Unaware of this, Shane asked a few more questions to the guild staff before following their directions up the staircase to the second floor. Unlike the hall on the first floor, the second floor of the Adventurers Guild consisted of various rooms. Those rooms were prepared for adventurers. Of course, these rooms weren't for resting, but for official use. For example, some commissions require the client to personally explain to the adventurers. If clients didn't want their commission posted on the bulletin board in the main hall downstairs for everyone to see, they needed a private explanation and assignment. Additionally, commissions involving trading goods and transporting supplies also required a place for handover. The Adventurers Guild had these rooms prepared on the second floor for such purposes. It was said that people of significant status and position would occasionally issue secret commissions that couldn't be conducted publicly, and those also used these rooms. Therefore, the Explorers Guild had numerous rooms on the second floor available for use by adventurers and clients. They were also sometimes borrowed by adventurers for team meetings to discuss critical matters, or when the guild was responsible for arranging adventurer affairs. These rooms would also be used. The adventurer team Shane was joining had borrowed one of these rooms on the second floor for a gathering, waiting for Shane to report. In this situation, Shane headed up to the second floor, explained who he was looking for to the guiding guild staff, and was then led to a room. Notably, upon hearing Shane was looking for someone named Vivian, the guiding guild staff showed a hint of surprise and muttered, "So it's him?" leaving Shane quite puzzled. Unfortunately, the staff gave no explanation, and Shane could only follow them to a door. "Miss Vivian, the mentioned newcomer is here." The guiding guild staff knocked while speaking. "Please come in," a surprisingly gentle voice replied from inside. The guild staff opened the door, revealing the scene inside the room to Shane. It was a room resembling a private box. The room wasn't spacious, but it wasn't cramped. For temporary use, it was quite a suitable place. However, standing at the door, Shane was taken aback, because the people in the room left him once again surprised. "Are you Shane?" The question, spoken in a gentle tone to Shane, came from a youthful girl who was undeniably beautiful and had stunning curves, yet was clad in heavy armor with a massive shield and sword leaning against the wall beside her. Surrounding this youthful girl were 3 other female adventurers, around the same age, all of whom were equally attractive. In short, the booth was filled with young, stunning female adventurers. This scene left Shane standing at the door, silent, unable to muster the courage to step inside. Meanwhile, the beautiful girls in the booth were likewise observing Shane, each with a different expression as if assessing him. In such a setting, the gentle youthful girl took the initiative to stand up. "I'm Vivian, currently serving as the leader of this adventurer team. I'll also be your guide for the upcoming month. Just call me Vivian." Vivian smiled at Shane, her demeanor seeming very amiable. However, the rest were not quite the same. Shane looked at the 3 girls besides Vivian. They were girls with an equal level of conspicuousness as Vivian in various ways. Sitting next to Vivian was a petite girl cloaked in a hooded black robe, nearly entirely hidden beneath it. Her face was also obscured under the hood, revealing only a glimpse of her fair, delicate lower face, not even her eyes. Beside, or rather hiding behind the black-robed girl, was another petite figure, a beastman girl with adorable features, animal ears, and a tail. Her face was filled with timidity and fear of strangers, inducing an urge to bully her a bit. The last girl was an elf, with pointed ears and long, waist-length green hair. She wore a mage's robe, holding a long magic wand, her exquisite face even more dazzling than an idol's debut. Adding Vivian into the mix, that's 4 beautiful girls within the booth who were all quite striking in different ways. Even the black-robed girl hiding most of her face under the hood had such a fair lower face that one could tell her looks would not lose out to the others. This adventurer team, at this moment, besides Vivian, who wore a gentle and kind expression, the other 3's attitudes were not exactly friendly. The black-robed girl didn't even lift her head. The Beastman girl stayed hidden behind the black-robed girl, looking extremely shy. The elf girl had a tense face, her eyes revealing a slight wariness as she looked at Shane. Shane remained silent for a long time, because he was feeling conflicted. An adventurer team full of beautiful girls? This setup actually existed. Plus, he was about to join them as a newcomer, and as the only male adventurer. This plot, really, the same old cliched story. That was all Shane felt. Unaware of Shane's thoughts, Vivian observed him standing silently at the entrance without moving. Yet her gentleness remained unchanged. Vivian seemed to understand the fact that her team was quite conspicuous in various ways. Normally, a newcomer, especially a male, was bound to feel at a loss during such introductions. So, please don't feel reserved. Come in and sit down. Vivian warmly invited Shane. Honestly, Shane didn't really want to go in. Not because he didn't like being with beautiful girls. As a man, naturally, being in the company of such a visually pleasing group of girls should make him happy. However, due to certain aspects of his character, more than happiness, Shane felt troubled. There was no helping it. I can already foresee what kind of troublesome developments I'll encounter after joining this team. Shane sighed inwardly. For someone who wished for a normal venture and low-key personal improvement, joining such a team full of factors drawing attention was not his desire. Unfortunately, given the situation, Shane could only step into the booth and take a seat. Opposite him, Vivian and her 3 companions sat in a line, none sharing his table. Facing 4 beautiful girls, Shane could not continue to remain silent. Shane sighed inwardly again and started speaking. "I'm Shane. Nice to meet you." Shane was as polite as he could be. Seeing Shane's earnest and well-behaved manner, Vivian was somewhat reassured too. In the past, male adventurers joining Vivian's team rarely performed well during the first meeting. Some subtly ogled at the looks and figures of Vivian and her companions. Some even let their desires show in their eyes or expressions, while others pretended to be gentlemanly and easygoing, yet their thoughts were obvious. Some, though harmless, still couldn't help fawning over Vivian and the others, appearing very submissive. Vivian couldn't determine the nature of this new guy yet, but his appearance suggested he would be straightforward, so she wasn't worried he'd cause trouble. Of course, observation was still needed. This was just the first meeting, and the true nature of the person still required careful evaluation. Thinking of this, Vivian signaled to the companions beside her. At this, the 3 girls finally lifted their heads. TL, the black-robed girl, introduced herself in a cold voice, yet despite its iciness, her tone was surprisingly pleasant and carried a hint of childishness, which made it hard to feel any ill will. "I am Lumia. Pleased to meet you." The Beastman girl stuttered as she gave her name, clutching onto one of TL's hands tightly, her shy and timid nature clearly displayed. "America. Nice to meet you." The elf girl bowed to Shane. Her exquisite face remained tense, not exactly hostile, but her nervousness and wariness towards strangers were evident. Then, the 3 girls fell silent again, causing Vivian to feel a bit helpless. As for Shane, he felt a sense of relief instead. This was the normal reaction when a male suddenly joined an all-girls group. But for this reason, Shane wanted to be clear. "Miss Vivian," Shane addressed Vivian, "can I really join this team?" Shane got straight to the point. "Could I really join this team?" Shane's question left Vivian and the others slightly taken aback. "What?" Vivian seemed a bit surprised and asked, "Do you have any reservations?" This question made Shane want to truthfully answer, yes. However, if he really answered that way, it would be too blunt. So, Shane brought it up in a roundabout way. "It seems that your team is entirely made up of female adventurers, and having a male adventurer like me suddenly join might cause some inconvenience, right?" Shane implied that regardless of his own concerns, Vivian and the others should have their reservations as well. Vivian and the others hadn't expected Shane to bring this up himself. At that moment, Vivian chuckled. "It might have some impact, right?" Vivian responded honestly rather than being perfunctory. "But don't view us this way. In fact, we've experienced similar situations many times. This time, it's also the guild's arrangement. Whether out of duty or as senior adventurers, we should readily accept the responsibility of mentoring newcomers. Duty and responsibility, is it? Shane raised an eyebrow. That's right. Vivian looked at Shane, smiling kindly, and said, "We were once newcomers struggling on the path of adventurers. Back then, thanks to the thoughtful arrangements of the Guild and the guidance of our seniors, we made it to where we are now. The Guild and adventurers have always contributed to this career, allowing both to grow stronger throughout the centuries. That adventurers and the Guild have developed to this point, becoming a force spread worldwide, goes without saying about the comprehensive system in place. Even though on the surface it appears adventurers and the Guild are in a mutually beneficial relationship. Adventurers using the Guild platform to take on various commissions, earning rewards and advancing their skills, and the Guild growing using the intermediary relationship between adventurers and commissioners in order to perfect the scouting career. The Guild indeed sets many constraints and maintains proper management. For example, rookie adventurers who lack training and assessment embarking on adventures alone would drastically increase the risk of losing their lives, not to mention how well they complete commissions. Therefore, both emotionally and rationally, the Guild needs to enlighten and assess newly joined adventurers to a certain extent. This ensures they can complete commissions better and prevents people ill-suited for this adventurous work from facing danger. Having senior adventurers lead the rookies has become a necessity. For millennia, the Guild has been nurturing newcomers with this system, which is why the scouting career has thus thrived. Vivian and others were once newcomers who received care from their seniors. Having benefited, they naturally should repay kindness with kindness. Is that so? Shane nodded while having his own doubts internally. As someone from another world, Shane knew well that few can live up to these principles. In his past life, countless people received favors from others while pursuing self-interests, engaging in ungrateful acts. Even if no one wants to be a proverbial ungrateful wolf, many simply accept favors without gratitude, with few repaying them in the end. Perhaps here, fostering newcomers is deemed a binding duty for seasoned adventurers, but not everyone is willing to perform this duty willingly. After all, once adventurers join the same team, they need to act together, embark on adventures, and even face life and death situations. Each member's strength determines the adventure's difficulty for the team. If the team is strong enough, they can take on more dangerous commissions, doing jobs that pay well. If the team lacks strength, they must consider safety, preventing them from taking on dangerous commissions easily, complicating future adventures. That is to say, newcomers joining old teams could be quite a setback. With such impacts, there are surely not many veteran teams genuinely willing to train newcomers. Vivian's team, filled with beautiful female adventurers, would face even greater disruption with a male adventurer joining. That being the case, their readiness to shoulder the responsibility was respectable, at least to Shane. Moreover, Vivian said, "It's only for a month. Previously, our team was quite active. We haven't had a proper rest for a long time. This time consider it a relaxation break, and rest assured, it's the common consensus within the team. You shouldn't worry." That's what Vivian said. Hearing this, Shane thought for a moment, then bowed his head toward Vivian and the others. "Then for the next month, please take care of me." Shane accepted this current situation. "All right." Vivian suddenly smiled and then suggested, "No time like the present. Today, we'll first take some simple commissions to get you familiar with adventurer work." Shane couldn't refuse this suggestion. After all, Shane wanted to quickly understand adventurer tasks and improve his strength smoothly afterward. The others didn't object either, and together with Shane and Vivian, they left the private room, heading toward the Guild's first floor hall. When Shane and the group descended to the first floor, the previously noisy hall suddenly turned silent. Vivian, TL, Lumuya, and Marika exchanged glances without commenting and headed toward the bulletin board. Shane, accompanying them, felt a slight change on his face, internally sighing once more. Things indeed got troublesome. The Guildhall adventurers' gazes were first drawn to Vivian and the others, then all focused on Shane. Clearly, Shane, acting alongside Vivian and the others, would inevitably attract considerable attention. Shane noticed this scene and remained unaffected. After all, Shane had already expected this situation. Since the matter had already occurred, even if it was unavoidable, it had to be accepted. Shane once again demonstrated his ability to accept things like this. Moreover, Shane was just afraid of trouble, not afraid of matters, and certainly not timid, so there was no need to dwell on this issue. Thus, Shane followed behind Vivian and the others, arriving at the guild's bulletin board, shielding his gaze from the surroundings to look at the situation on the board. The bulletin board used by the Adventurers Guild to post numerous quest sheets was really just a decorated wall. There were sheets of parchment posted on it, each in different colors. Some were black iron, some bronze, some silver, some gold, and also platinum. However, the further the colors went, the fewer sheets there were, and the higher they were posted. In other words, on the bulletin board, black iron sheets were the most abundant and posted at the bottom, while platinum ones were the least and posted at the top. Vivian began explaining to Shane. These are the quest sheets that have been filtered and posted by the guild. As you can see, each quest sheet has its own color, and those colors indicate the difficulty of the quest recorded on it. Previously, the guild staff had also told Shane that there were levels of distinction among adventurers as well, from first-class adventurer to 7th rank adventurer. They would respectively be awarded black iron, bronze, silver, gold, platinum, mithril, and black luster medals by the Adventurers Guild. The guild produced quest sheets of the same materials as these medals, indicating the difficulty of the quest. Generally speaking, a first-class adventurer with a black iron first-class junior medal can only accept black iron level quests, and so forth. Of course, only a 5th-class adventurer with a platinum 5th-class special grade medal can accept platinum quests. At the same time, lower-level adventurers cannot take on higher-level quests, but higher-level adventurers can take on lower-level quests. This is the system adopted by the guild. However, there are exceptions to everything. It is not impossible to accept quests higher than your level if you form an adventurer team and the team's strength is recognized by the guild. Only then can you accept higher-level quests. Vivian said as such. In our team, under normal circumstances, we could only accept quests at the same level as the highest-level adventurer within the team. However, we are allowed by the guild to accept quests one level higher. This is also why many adventurers are willing to form teams. Firstly, having companions naturally makes it easier to carry out adventurous activities and makes adventure safer. Secondly, forming a team allows for the privilege of accepting quests of a higher level. Of course, it's not enough to just form a team. If the members' strengths are uneven or there are issues with cooperation, making it unable to form more effective combat power, the guild will not grant permission. Therefore, trying to find people who don't fit or just to pad numbers is not acceptable. Forming a team is a serious affair related to treatment and achievement issues, so you must also consider it carefully in the future. While saying this, Vivian continued with the explanation. Also, the higher the level of the quest, the more difficult it is to complete, and naturally, the reward is more generous. Have you noticed this already? Indeed, Shane had noticed this. For example, now posted high at the top of the bulletin board was a platinum-level quest sheet with the following content. Magic Potion of Undying. Task: explore the ruins of ancient civilization located deep within the center of the Felucian Lake Swamp and bring back the legendary magic potion that grants undying life. Reward: 100,000 gold coins. This quest, both in content and reward, quite stimulated one's desires. Not to mention the immense value of undying life for mortals with limited lifespans. Just the reward of 100,000 gold coins was enough to drive countless people crazy. In this world, a single copper coin could buy an apple, and 1 gold coin was equivalent to 10,000 copper coins. So, 100,000 gold coins was probably equivalent to billions in the previous life, right? However, this was the highest level quest on the bulletin board, and even among the platinum quests, it was one of the hardest and highest rewarded sheets. As for black iron level quests, the rewards were much more approachable. ranging from several copper coins to several silver coins, and the quest content varied, including tasks from collecting herbs to searching for missing persons, making one sigh at the vast difference. If I hadn't joined the team, I probably could only accept quests of this level, right? Thinking of this, for the first time, Shane was grateful he joined this team. By the way, Shane suddenly realized something and asked Vivian a question, saying, "Aren't there mithril and black luster levels too? Why don't I see any quests of those levels?" Hearing this, Vivian chuckled. Mithril and black luster levels are generally not posted on the bulletin board, right? Vivian explained. Mithril level quests usually involve matters directly related to the life and death of a town or a noble family, and they definitely won't appear casually. Black luster level quests concern the fate of the nation, being the highest difficulty quests. Even if they appear, they would be conducted secretly, directly appointed to a named 7th rank adventurer by the king or someone from the royal family. So, let alone in Lamidjan, even in the royal capital's Adventurers Guild, mithril and black luster level quest sheets won't easily appear. Only then did Shane understand. In other words, under normal circumstances, the highest level quests only went up to platinum level, right? Just as Shane figured this out, Vivian and the others began selecting quests, tearing them from the bulletin board to register with the guild staff at the counter. Quests taken down from the bulletin board needed to be brought to the counter to process execution procedures. Only after being recognized by the guild staff would they be officially accepted. Vivian's team had torn off 3 quest sheets. Collection of spring water. Task: retrieve 3 bottles of spring water from a source of magic power. The source's scale must reach medium. Reward: 20 gold coins. Fire lizard skin. Task: go to the Mangar mountain range, where fire lizards dwell, hunt 30 fire lizards, and bring back their skin. Reward: 10 gold coins. Eliminate blood-sucking vine. Task: a large number of blood-sucking vines have grown on the main road leading to the northern town Frisia, causing great harm. Please clear them promptly. Reward: 10 gold coins. There were 3 quest sheets, 1 gold level, and 2 silver levels, and they were the type that could be completed within a short period. After being categorized and filtered by the guild, the posted quest sheets were not distinguished by the amount of reward, but solely by the level of difficulty and danger. In other words, the higher the level of the quest, the harder it was to complete and the more dangerous it was, though the reward would also be much higher. However, this was not absolute. Even among lower-level quests, there were some with high rewards. Those quests were typically not dangerous or difficult to complete on their own, but they took an extensive amount of time or required great luck or even specific conditions to complete. For instance, among black iron level quests, there was one to serve as a weapon tutor for a noble family's child. It required an adventurer with the corresponding weapon skills at a certain level, and the quest was only considered complete once the skills were taught. The reward was 30 gold coins, which was quite generous. Such high-reward quests, due to their lack of danger and their nature as feasible tasks, usually were not classified as high-level quests and could even be taken by black iron first-class adventurers. As mentioned before, generally, it took years for a normal person to learn a skill, unless the other party was a genius. Accepting such a quest meant spending several years to complete it. If the one being taught was talentless, unable to learn even after years of teaching, the quest would ultimately fail, leaving one with wasted time and no reward. Therefore, the level of a quest only reflected its completion difficulty and danger. Based on such a reason, Vivian's team took 3 quests at once in the end, each of the type that could be completed in a short time, but with some difficulty. These quests generally had a higher level and rewards comparable to those low-level, safe quests that took years to complete, though they did harbor danger. However, seeing the relaxed expressions of Vivian and the others, such a level of quest should be no problem for them, right? Otherwise, Vivian and the others wouldn't want to take 3 quests at once. Of course, another reason for taking 3 quests at once was that the path to complete them was the same. A medium magic source exists in the area of the Mongol mountain range, where fire lizards dwell. The main road to the northern town of Frisia also passes through the Mongol mountain range, so these 3 quests could be completed together. Vivian explained to Shane, letting him understand how adventurers usually conducted their activities, often taking several quests at once. Originally, Shane thought that adventurers accepted quests one by one, as is often mentioned in most games and novels. But in reality, taking on several quests at once seemed to be the norm for adventuring activities. As Vivian said, since a medium magic source existed in the Mongol mountain range, where fire lizards dwell, and the main road to the northern town of Frisia also passes through the Mongol mountain range, then these 3 quests could all be completed together, right? In light of this, adventurers needed to not only choose quests with suitable difficulty based on their strength and conditions, but also consider how to complete their adventures more effectively, quickly, and conveniently. Additionally, adventurers needed to understand various types of knowledge to complete quests. For instance, among the 3 quests Vivian's team accepted, there were things like what a magic source was and where it generally appeared, how to strip the skin of a fire lizard after defeating it, and how to eliminate blood-sucking vines. This kind of knowledge needed to be possessed, or else it would be hard to complete an adventure despite having outstanding abilities. This made Shane realize once again that reality was indeed reality and was different from novels and games. Not just anyone could make a living as an adventurer. Under such circumstances, Vivian's team left the guild under full view with 3 commission slips after completing the procedures. By the way, after leaving the guild and before heading to the city gate of Lamidjan, Vivian suddenly looked at Shane. Do you need to gather your equipment before setting off? It's understandable why Vivian would say this. Adventurers needed to enter areas filled with demons to carry out quests and face various dangers. So naturally, the more complete and advanced the equipment, the better. Not everyone should be outfitted in tightly sealed heavy full-body armor like Vivian, but at the very least, they should have some armor, right? Like Lumia, who wore leather-light armor that didn't greatly hinder her movements. Under TL's black robe, she seemed to have breastplates, wrist guards, knee guards, and other armor, while Marika wore a magic robe that emitted a rather remarkable magical power fluctuation, indicating it was likely an extraordinary magic tool. On the other hand, Shane, aside from carrying a long, wrapped object, wore random black casual clothes that looked more like those of a tourist than an adventurer. With this sort of appearance going on an adventure, it was no wonder Vivian made such a suggestion. If you're short on money, within my ability, I can help you a little. Vivian's implication was quite clear. She was offering to lend Shane money to gather equipment. Shane hesitated a little in response to this. Actually, Shane had considered this issue. But, even when not under the protection of the Holy Sword, with the physical resistance and magic resistance skills, I don't feel like I need much armor. These 2 skills have been raised to level 10 by Shane. So even though they were not as game-breaking as the Holy Sword, which reduced damage by 99%, Shane felt that unless encountering quite terrifying figures, it would be hard for anyone to harm him. In that case, what more armor would he need? However, let's set aside armor. I do need a weapon. Shane expressed this to Vivian. A weapon. At that moment, not only Vivian, but even the always silent TL, Lumuya, and Marika were somewhat puzzled. Vivian then expressed her confusion. Don't you already have a weapon with you? Vivian was obviously referring to the long, wrapped object Shane had carried with him. From its appearance, it looked like a weapon, right? However, Shane only touched his nose. This weapon is not so good to use. Better not use it. That was what Shane said. This was not Shane lying. In fact, using the Holy Sword in front of others really wasn't a good idea. If others were to find out about the existence of the Holy Sword, Shane couldn't even begin to imagine what would happen then. According to Neon, the Holy Sword was a weapon exclusive to heroes, and once it was exposed, Shane's identity would be completely revealed. Naturally, Shane didn't want to expose any of this. Given this, not only the Holy Sword, but even the existence of his unique skill and special skill, as well as his full set of level 10 skills, Shane had to keep them hidden for the sake of his peaceful future life. In this case, saying the Holy Sword was not very useful was probably fine, right? As for how others understood it, that was not Shane's problem. Vivian still found it a bit strange, yet she nodded anyway. Then let's help you buy a weapon first, Vivian asked. What about armor? There's no need for armor for now. Shane thought for a moment, then shook his head and said, I'll prepare armor once I've saved enough money. For now, since you are all here, let's just leave it at that. Upon hearing this, Vivian wanted to say something, but in the end, she remained silent, as if she wanted to respect Shane's decision. Even though not preparing armor wasn't advisable, just like Shane said, with them around during these few commissions, they should be able to take care of him. Besides, if he really suffered losses due to not being equipped with armor, it would serve as a lesson. Vivian thought this over and chose not to interfere with Shane's decision. And since Vivian was like this, the others didn't have any objections either. Shane, Vivian, and the others then headed to the weapon shop together. There, Shane bought a very sharp broad blade sword. The so-called very sharp was honestly within the scope of an ordinary weapon, and naturally could not compare with magic weapons infused with magical effects. Therefore, Shane only spent 1 gold coin to acquire this sword. Then, the group left the weapon shop, rented a carriage, and headed north out of Limijan. Shane's first adventure as an adventurer began just like that. With the sound of the wheels clattering, a carriage drove steadily along a road north of Limijan, heading north along this road. The carriage was driven by Vivian. She sat in the driver's seat, steering the horse, and her gaze intermittently fell on the carriage behind her. Inside the carriage, a somewhat indescribable atmosphere was spreading. Shane sat on one side of the carriage, facing the other 3 members of Vivian's team. However, not a word of conversation formed among everyone, and they simply sat facing each other, resulting in an atmosphere that seemed somewhat heavy. Shane glanced at the 3 girls seated opposite him. Lumia was clinging to TL like a child, not daring to even glance at Shane, keeping her head timidly down and tightly holding TL's arm, clearly showing her tension and unease. TL, on the other hand, sat quietly, not even looking at Shane. Only Marika occasionally sneaked glances at Shane, quickly withdrawing her gaze upon making eye contact with him, her vigilance apparent. This scene persisted ever since Vivian left. Originally, within this small team, the only one who was relatively friendly and kind to Shane was Vivian. Except for Vivian, the other 3 hadn't uttered a word since introducing themselves, not even in the carriage. Had it not been for Vivian continuously conversing with Shane, this heavy atmosphere might have appeared much earlier. Now, with Vivian driving the carriage, leaving Shane alone in this group, it naturally turned out like this. Although Shane didn't show it, he was jokingly critical inwardly. Would the next month have to be spent in such an environment? It was honestly unexciting. Maybe he should. Everyone. Shane spoke up. Since the others wouldn't break the ice, he decided to give it a try. However, the 3 girls opposite Shane reacted even more noticeably than he'd expected. Lumuya and Marika were startled by Shane's sudden voice. One couldn't help but let out a small squeal while the others shivered, gripping her magic wand tightly. Even TL seemed to focus her attention on Shane, her head slightly lifting, and the eyes beneath her hood seemed to release a sharp gaze, instantly locking onto Shane. Inside the carriage, the atmosphere, which was already somewhat heavy, immediately became even heavier. Shane was half surprised, half smiling bitterly, and said, "You don't need to react that strongly, do you?" With this sentence, Lumuya and Marika turned their eyes away awkwardly, while only TL continued to stare at Shane intently. Seeing this, Shane scratched his cheek. It seemed they were quite guarded against him, unlike Vivian. Holding casual and pleasant conversations with such beautiful girls? How on earth should he go about it? In novels, the protagonists who could accomplish this without a change in expression must all have some sort of cheat, right? Really wished his cheat could cover that area too. Shane sighed for the umpteenth time in his heart, pondered for a moment, then relaxed his shoulders. Forget it, Shane muttered softly to himself. Yes, Shane clearly gave up just like that. Since they didn't seem interested in conversation and held such a strong sense of caution, Shane didn't want to make unnecessary efforts to complicate matters. In short, trying too hard to engage with an indifferent attitude was something Shane couldn't do. Thus, Shane merely said one sentence. You all don't have to be overly cautious because of my presence. Anyway, it's just for a month. I'll try to minimize my presence and won't affect you. I hope we can eventually part on good terms. After saying this, Shane didn't speak further. Yet his words left the three girls momentarily stunned. This, TL, Lumuya, and Marika looked at Shane in quite a surprise, seemingly not expecting him to say such a thing. Thus, the three exchanged glances before returning to silence. Inside the carriage, the air seemed to grow even more weighty. On the driver's seat, Vivian had been constantly watching the situation inside the carriage. Listening to Shane's words and feeling the heavy air, a tinge of helplessness appeared on her face. It seemed that past events had quite a substantial impact on TL and the others, huh? Thinking this, Vivian also felt quite surprised by Shane's words. Unexpectedly, Shane was so straightforward in drawing boundaries. Pondering this, Vivian found herself becoming somewhat interested in Shane. Maybe he's different from those male adventurers we had before. Vivian thought this while continuing to drive the carriage. The wheels continued to clatter. Meanwhile, to one side of the road, a huge boulder suddenly moved slightly. Inside the carriage, Shane, who originally did not plan to speak again, suddenly appeared thoughtful as he directed his gaze toward a certain direction. An enemy? Shane's enemy detection skill reacted, informing him that an enemy had appeared. The reaction isn't very strong, indicating a low level, and there's only one of them. Shane quickly made this judgment. However, Shane did not alert Vivian and the others. After all, he was currently just a new adventurer who hadn't learned any skills. Speaking up without reason might arouse suspicion afterward. So, Shane intended to observe quietly and seize the opportunity to act. Shane underestimated Vivian's team a bit. In the next second, TL abruptly raised her head, breaking her silence, and spoke with a vigilant voice towards the direction of the carriage seat. Vivian, driving the carriage, immediately tightened the reins and stopped the carriage amidst the horses' loud neighs. Inside the carriage, Lumuya and Marika were already standing up, entering a state of alertness. Witnessing this scene, Shane was initially surprised but quickly understood. Have they already detected the enemy? Shane glanced meaningfully at TL, who had jumped out of the carriage. This girl likely had the enemy detection skill, just like Shane. Unfortunately, her skill level was low, causing her to detect the enemy later than Shane. Vivian and the others were well aware of this, immediately becoming alert the moment TL alerted them. Their rapid response showed their cohesion as a team of adventurers. As a result, Shane followed behind Lumuya and Marika, carrying his pack and sword as he leaped from the carriage. The group gathered in front of the carriage and looked toward Vivian, who was calming the agitated horses. At this moment, Vivian appeared calm as she focused her gaze on Shane. Look over there, Shane. In the direction Vivian pointed, a rock was slowly moving, eventually rising like a giant stone statue. That's a golem, a demon creature originally just a special magic mineral rock, transformed into a demon due to magic influence while located near a magic source. Vivian explained this to Shane. Mages sometimes create these creatures with magic to fight and work for them. These creatures can appear anywhere, and the higher their level, the larger their size. Some dungeons' golems may even contain precious minerals, attracting many people's covetous attention. Nonetheless, they also disguise themselves as roadside rocks, launching attacks when someone passes by. Naturally, such golems contain minimal magic minerals, and their level is low. Otherwise, they wouldn't leave their magic source habitat to attack humans by the roadside. They target trade, caravans transporting minerals, and adventurers like us who carry weapons and equipment made from precious metals. Consuming these metals is their way to gain strength, level up, and gradually evolve their bodies. Vivian said this to Shane while watching the golem, which had started charging towards them. Judging by this golem's size, its level should be around 15, at most not exceeding 20, so it shouldn't be a dangerous opponent for you. This statement immediately clarified Vivian's intentions for Shane. "I've left it to you," Vivian said to Shane. "Let's see how strong you are." This was Shane's first test as an adventurer and a new member of Vivian's team. Shane realized that not only Vivian, but also TL, Lumuya, and Marika were focusing their gazes on him. In front, the golem, resembling a giant made of stone, approached with heavy footsteps. "Understood." Shane nodded to everyone, then walked toward the golem while drawing the sword from his side, holding it in his hand. With each passing moment, the distance between Shane and the golem shortened. Vivian, TL, Lumuya, and Marika quietly observed from behind. Feeling the gazes from behind, Shane began to strategize mentally. What level of power should I show? As a newbie adventurer who hadn't learned any skills, he definitely couldn't reveal too much combat power. Firstly, I can't use extreme transformation or display resistance skills, so I mustn't get hit. Unlike extreme transformation, an actively used skill, a passive skill took effect permanently once acquired, and Shane couldn't choose to use or not use it at will. So, to ensure his passive skills wouldn't be exposed, Shane had to avoid detection as best as he could. Additionally, his fighting method needed to slow down, avoiding too much display, and during evasion, he needed caution to keep both the military god and evasion skills concealed. As for the holy sword, it was naturally out of the question to use it, but I can't be too clumsy either. Otherwise, if Vivian and the others deemed him unfit as an adventurer, the test result would be detrimental, undermining his goal of becoming an adventurer. Therefore, Shane needed to perform adequately, but not excessively, while concealing his numerous skills to avoid exposure. "This is too difficult for me." Shane felt trouble at heart, but the demon showed no mercy towards Shane's predicament. With heavy footsteps, it had already charged before Shane. "Here it comes." Shane could only shake off all thoughts and focus completely as he looked at the golem before him. At that moment, the golem, now in front of Shane, raised its massive arm and swung its stone-like fist at Shane. The evasion skill immediately reacted, prompting Shane's body to dodge. However, to prevent exposing his skill, Shane restrained himself and only twisted his body to dodge the attack awkwardly, waiting until the golem's fist was nearly upon him. Immediately, a gust of wind rushed past Shane. Boom! Amid a resonating, ground-shaking noise, the golem's heavy fist brushed past Shane and struck the ground, causing the earth to tremble and sand and rocks to swirl. At this point, Shane, having dodged to the side, abruptly moved, seizing the opportunity when the golem was stiff from its missed attack. Clang! With a clashing sound, the sharp sword traced an arc, smashing into one of the golem's legs, forcing it to kneel on the ground. It had to be said, Shane used this strike very cleverly, because the weapon in his hand was just an ordinary two-handed sword, not even a magic weapon, let alone comparable to the holy sword. And because he had to conceal many skills, Shane employed some tricks to strike the golem's knee joint, causing it to lose balance and collapse directly to the ground. If he had used the holy sword, Shane could have shattered the golem with a single blow. Even without the holy sword, in fact, just with the attack power boost from Shane's level 10 two-handed sword skill, he could have sliced the golem in half. If he added the boost from the extreme transformation skill, it would have been even easier. However, to avoid showing too much, Shane restrained his strength and deliberately made it look like he was defeating the opponent through clever tactics. In this way, Shane could hide many skills and still display enough highlights to pass the adventurer assessment. As the golem knelt down, due to losing balance, Shane began to launch an unreserved fierce attack. Clang! 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 Amid the loud hammering sounds, Shane kept fiercely hacking at the golem's knee joint, causing stone chips to constantly burst from the struck area and fly everywhere. The golem, kneeling there, swung its arms, attempting to attack Shane, but Shane dodged to the golem's back, avoiding the thick stone arm that swung with a strong wind and continued to chop at the golem's knee joint, making it impossible for it to stand up. Boom! After numerous chops, the golem's knee finally shattered into numerous pieces of rubble scattered on the ground. Losing one leg, the golem fell heavily to the ground with a heavy collision noise. Now's the time. As if Shane had been waiting for this moment a long time, he leaped onto the golem's back. With what seemed like all his strength, he raised the great sword above his head and brought it down heavily on the golem's head lying on the ground. Boom! With an explosive cracking sound, the golem's head was split open, shattering into countless pieces. In this way, after expending quite some effort, Shane successfully defeated the unlucky golem. With this, there shouldn't be any problem, right? Shane wiped his forehead, acting as though he was wiping away sweat, while inwardly making a victory gesture. Yet, when Shane turned his head and looked behind him, he was met with a series of astonished expressions. He actually won. Ooh, this strength. TL, Lumuya, and Marika were either surprised or shocked. Not only those three, even Vivian wore the same expression. I didn't expect you to actually win. It seems your strength is much higher than I thought, Shane. Vivian voiced her surprise like this. That reaction made Shane's mouth twitch slightly. Is this strange? Shane asked Vivian weakly. Didn't you say that for me, this golem shouldn't be a dangerous opponent? Hearing this, Vivian's expression turned a bit strange. That's exactly what I said. Vivian replied with a wry smile, because golems are famously heavy and clumsy demons. Even fresh newbie adventurers should be able to barely avoid a golem's attack, as long as the level difference isn't too great. So naturally, they aren't dangerous, but wanting to actually defeat such a demon isn't something a newbie adventurer about 10 levels inferior can do. Hearing this, Shane's expression froze. Seeing Shane like this, Vivian continued with a peculiar expression. In conclusion, although golems are cumbersome and their attacks are hard to hit opponents, their defensive power is famously high because their bodies are composed entirely of rock and minerals. To defeat such a demon, you must at least prepare a weapon with considerable destructive might, like a heavy hammer or a large axe. Otherwise, use intermediate or higher magic for bombardment. We have never heard of someone cutting it down with a sword under the circumstances of having a lower level. In other words, Vivian's intention wasn't to let Shane defeat the golem. Instead, she wanted to use this opportunity to assess Shane's performance against a demon that cannot be defeated yet isn't dangerous. As a result, Shane, who was unaware of Vivian's intentions, naturally wanted to complete Vivian's assessment by spending some effort to defeat the demon. And in the end, he defeated the golem. Obviously, you're only at level 10, haven't acquired any skills, and the weapon you're using is brand new equipment you just got. Other than being sharp, it has no other merits, not to mention compared to a magic weapon. Yet you managed to defeat a demon whose level is higher than yours and is not easy to defeat under such conditions. Wouldn't you say it's strange to us? Vivian's words left Shane at a loss for words. Seeing Tiel, Lumuya, and Marika looking at him with eyes that expressed considerable surprise, and even Vivian's eyes becoming more profound, Shane laughed dryly. So, in other words, my abilities aren't bad, and I didn't disappoint you, right? Shane could only doggedly continue the topic. Yeah, although it's surprising, it's a good thing. Vivian gave Shane a meaningful look, then said, since you could defeat a golem nearly 10 levels higher than yours, you should be able to learn skills soon. No, rather this performance makes it strange not to have learned any skills, but perhaps it also shows your growth potential in all aspects is very high. Growth potential in all aspects. Shane asked subconsciously, what does that mean? What? You don't know. Vivian was stunned and then asked more curiously, according to each person's training direction and talents, everyone's growth potential in all aspects is different. This should be common knowledge, right? Common knowledge? For Shane, this so-called common knowledge was truly something unrelated, also the most troublesome matter. However, Shane somewhat understood what Vivian meant. When a person levels up, although their strength will definitely increase, not all abilities will grow stronger. Vivian explained, upon leveling up, different abilities will increase according to the training direction, expertise, and talents. For example, when a power-type warrior levels up, their power will surely increase the most. The same logic applies. When a mage levels up, their magic power increases first. If one excels in neither physical capabilities nor talent and has undergone no training, then when leveling up, abilities in this regard won't increase. Therefore, the abilities acquired when leveling up differ per individual. Like me, being a defense-type frontliner, my endurance and resistance capabilities improve most visibly and significantly as I level up, while other capabilities don't increase noticeably, Vivian continued. And someone like Marika, when leveling up, her magic power increases the most. In contrast, her physical ability is still no different from an average girl's, even now. That's how it is. Vivian's explanation finally made Shane understand why she insisted that his growth potential in all aspects was very high. Since you were able to defeat a golem about 10 levels higher under such conditions, your growth potential must be very high to achieve that, right? This was Vivian's belief. Logically speaking, under the same level, a strength-oriented warrior would definitely lose to a warrior who is not only strength-oriented, but also defense-oriented and can even use magic, right? Therefore, if the growth potential in all aspects is very high, then during level up, every capability can be fully enhanced, and the overall improvement will naturally be far greater than those who only improve one or two areas of ability. However, this is under the condition that other factors, including skills, are not considered. If one has combat skills and can also raise those skills to a certain level, the situation would naturally be different. Level is the hardware, while skills are the software. Only by possessing both can truly formidable power be formed. Thus, only those whose level and skill levels are both adequately high are truly strong. Those possessing only the former are like bodies without brains, simpletons. Those possessing only the latter are like brains without physiques, sickly. Neither is desirable. In short, to calculate a person's strength, both level and skills must be considered together. Perhaps Shane has an extraordinary advantage in level growth potential, but is disadvantaged in skill acquisition. Vivian thought silently to herself. Although normally, this shouldn't be possible. After all, as mentioned earlier, being able to elevate to level 10 means having certain innate talent. Logically, at least some simple skills should be acquired. What's going on indeed? Vivian watched Shane, lost in thought. Meanwhile, Shane also fell into contemplation because of Vivian's words. This was because Shane remembered one of the effects of his unique skill, Heaven's Grace. Besides having extraordinary results in acquiring and boosting skills, Shane's Heaven's Grace had another effect. All capabilities are enhanced to the maximum value upon leveling up. Previously, Shane never understood what this effect meant. Now, Shane understood. This effect allows all my abilities to enhance to their maximum during level up, right? In strength, endurance, magic power, and even reflexes, all aspects can be fully enhanced upon leveling up. This is the true manifestation of this effect. In Vivian's words, Shane had the highest growth potential in all areas. This forced Shane to once again realize how excessively overpowered his cheat was, making him feel uneasy. The bigger this cheat, the harder it is for me to hide it. Shane sighed inwardly. Suddenly, Shane thought of another problem. What is the benchmark for the level enhancement granted by Holy Sword? Since the capabilities that can improve during level up vary from person to person, related to personal talent, capability, and training direction, then what abilities will be enhanced by the level granted by Holy Sword? Moreover, how much enhancement is there? It couldn't be that, like Heaven's Grace's effect, all capability types enhance to the maximum value, right? At least when using the Holy Sword, Shane could feel that his magic power did not enhance. As for other capabilities, based on Shane's current level of improvement, by the time he reaches level 100, he seems to be stronger than the level 100 granted by Holy Sword. With this thought, Shane roughly concluded based on his usage experience. The level granted by the Holy Sword should provide an average enhancement in all areas except magic power. For instance, when Shane levels up, all aspects enhance to the full value of 10. The level 100 granted by the Holy Sword equally distributes 100 to each capability except magic power, converting to an enhancement of 1 per level in every ability except magic power for Shane. This way, by the time Shane reaches level 100, all his capabilities will reach the 1000 level, naturally stronger than the 100 enhancement from Holy Sword's level 100. Of course, this is just an example. But based on Shane's own feelings, by the time he reaches level 100, he would definitely be stronger than just relying on the level 100 granted by Holy Sword. Not to mention, the Holy Sword does not amplify magic power at all, but Shane's level up will enhance his magic power, which is already a difference. But the Holy Sword has other effects as well. I wouldn't say it's inferior to my unique skill. If so, Shane's unique skill also has other effects. Both in their own ways are powerful. However, Shane possessed both. Maybe this is why the goddess thought I had the best hope of defeating the Demon King. Shane pondered. Then, all right. Vivian clapped her hands, drawing everyone's attention. Now, we have a general understanding of Shane's strength. Although he is still a novice, I think his potential is much better than we imagined. Vivian looked towards TL and the others, asking, "Don't you think so?" TL, Lu Muya, and Marika remained silent, not responding. "What do you think, TL?" Vivian seemed to anticipate this situation and turned to TL. "Let's continue on our way." TL did not give any response. After a moment of silence, coldly threw down this sentence and returned to the carriage. Hold on. TL. Lu Muya immediately followed in a fluster, prompting Marika to hastily follow. Their deliberate avoidance or escape-like behavior left Vivian helpless. Shane, however, didn't overthink it and prepared to return to the carriage as well. But as he passed by Vivian, she said something. "I hope you won't blame them," Vivian sighed and said. "They don't dislike you. It's just because they've had some unpleasant experiences before, so they're a bit too wary of a newcomer like you." Her words made Shane stop in his tracks. Then, after thinking for a moment, Shane roughly understood what happened. A team composed of such exceptionally beautiful female adventurers. It's obvious how much trouble it can attract. Shane could understand this as well. "I'll keep a reasonable distance. Please don't worry." Shane smiled at Vivian and returned directly to the carriage. Vivian was stunned for a moment, then felt helpless again. "My intention wasn't to have you keep your distance." Vivian just wanted to express that to become close to TL and the others, a lot of effort and earning their trust was needed. Unexpectedly, Shane chose to keep his distance without hesitation. "What a strange newcomer," Vivian muttered and returned to the coach seat. Once paused, the carriage resumed movement, proceeding with the sound of wheels rolling forward. Half a day later, Shane and his group arrived at their first destination. "Is that the blood-sucking vine?" As Shane stepped off the carriage laden with a stifling atmosphere, the first thing he saw was their target for this journey, the blood-sucking vine. It grew across the road leading north, acting like a barrier that completely blocked the path with a dense tangle of vines. The vines were a glaring blood-red color and grew extremely lushly, intertwining tightly like an intricately knotted tree, forming a low and expansive wall of plants. However, it was not something to admire, because Shane could clearly see that the vines, resembling blood vessels, were not only pulsating and contracting repeatedly as if transporting something, but they were also constantly writhing, appearing quite nauseating. If he had seen such a scene when he was first summoned to this world, Shane thought he would have started vomiting. "Is this also a demon?" Shane muttered with some disgust. Beside him, Vivian, pulling the carriage, approached and responded to Shane's self-talk. "No, that's not a demon, just a type of plant that grows in places that have been bathed in a large amount of blood. Although it looks like a sentient demon, it's actually no different from other plants. The only difference is that it never absorbs water to grow, but only absorbs blood. So if you accidentally get caught, you may never escape, pierced by those vines and drained of all your blood until you die. For many, these blood-sucking vines pose the same threat as demons. Moreover, these blood-sucking vines had extremely strong life force and tenacity. Once they grew, They would proliferate at a rapid pace until they absorbed all the blood elements in the soil before stopping. Ordinary blades couldn't even cut through their outer skin, and getting too close risked being ensnared and drained. Therefore, in many places, these blood-sucking vines caused quite a bit of trouble. It's very difficult for ordinary people to remove these blood-sucking vines. So once a large number of them are detected near any town, the town's management will dispatch troops to clear them or delegate the task to adventurers from the Adventurers Guild to remove them to prevent excessive damage and obstruction. Vivian explained patiently. This time, the blood-sucking vines have grown on the main road to the northern towns, causing considerable losses to many merchants and creating many inconveniences for exchanges and trade between the two towns. Let's clear them out as soon as possible. Saying that, Vivian looked toward Marika. Is it okay, Marika? Vivian asked. And no problem. Marika tightened her grip on her magic wand, glanced imperceptibly at Shane, and then stepped forward. Seeing this, Shane raised an eyebrow, because he seemed to have a good idea of how they would get rid of those blood-sucking vines next. It's very difficult to clear blood-sucking vines with ordinary blades, and getting too close is dangerous. Vivian smiled when she saw Shane's faint look of anticipation, stating, "The best way is to start a big fire, burn them all up, and then slowly dig out the roots buried in the ground to prevent them from sprouting again." However, due to their extremely high life force and tenacity, a normal fire would burn for a very long time. Unless, directly use magic to burn the blood-sucking vine away in one go. As these words fell from Vivian's mouth, Marika began to move at the front. This is the breath of the heavenly wheel. Marika raised her magic wand and chanted a solemn spell from her enticing red lips. O scarlet fire spirit, O transparent ultimate truth, use this prayer as tinder, rise here. At that moment, the tension and anxiety previously held on Marika's face dissipated, and she seemed to transform into a natural fairy, swirling magic power around her as she shouted loudly. Heavenly fire rain. The crystal embedded at the top of the magic wand Marika held high shone brightly. Instantly, a surge of heat emerged from above Marika, transforming into countless flames that rained down on the patch of blood-sucking vine. The flames turned the surrounding area scarlet, as if summoning the glow of sunset, while causing the temperature of the air to rise continuously. Boom, boom, boom. In the next second, the endless rain of fire fell upon the blood-sucking vine, erupting like explosions, unleashing waves of fire that completely engulfed the blood-sucking vine. The blood-red vine succumbed to a sea of flames, burning fiercely. As if emitting silent screams, the vines writhed frantically in the fire. That scene made anyone who saw it suspect, just like Shane, that these were more than mere plants. They were demonic in nature. Sadly, unlike demons, which at least knew to flee or counterattack in moments of life and death crisis, the blood-sucking vines could do nothing but writhe helplessly in the sea of flames, as if making one last struggle. Before long, under the intense burning, the vines turned to charcoal and were burned away completely. The air was filled with the high temperatures and scorching heat of fire. Is that magic? Illuminated by the firelight, Shane watched the scene, unsure if he felt touched or emotional. Even though he had seen monsters spewing fire and lightning in the monster forest more than once, witnessing magic like this was undeniably a first for Shane. Shane fixed his gaze on Marika's back, the one who had unleashed this magical spectacle. Not until all the blood-sucking vines had been burned away did the fire vanish like an illusion, as Marika withdrew her magic power, gradually extinguishing it. The blood-sucking vines had been reduced to ash, leaving only scorched earth. Phew! Only then did Marika, like she was breathing a sigh of relief, put away her magic wand. You did well. Vivian stepped forward to commend Marika, still as powerful as ever. TL also made a mild remark. As expected of an elf, Lumia, holding TL's arm, gazed at Marika with adoring eyes. In response, Marika merely shook her head and said, I didn't do anything special, just used magic as usual. As she said this, A smile bloomed on Marika's face. Clearly, in the company of these companions, Marika's emotions were no longer stretched and tense, allowing her to slightly revert to her original persona. Seeing this, Shane, initially intending to step forward, halted. Looking at Marika's genuine smile, Shane discarded a budding idea. It seems I can't convince her to teach me magic. Regrettably, that was the case. However, magic, huh? Feeling the abundant magic power flowing within him and thinking about his magic guide skill, Shane thought he should find an opportunity to learn magic. Otherwise, it would be a waste of his abilities. Afterwards, to completely root out the blood-sucking vines, Shane and the others, led by Vivian, walked into the scorched land blackened by flame magic and dug up all the roots of the blood-sucking vines from the ground. The roots of the blood-sucking vines did not move like the main body. They were similar to the roots of regular plants and wouldn't entangle a person's body. They only absorbed the blood seeping into the soil from the earth and spread seeds to allow the blood-sucking vines to proliferate. Additionally, they weren't deeply rooted, so Shane and the others quickly dug up all the roots using their weapons as tools. Subsequently, under Vivian's instructions, the group gathered all the blood-sucking vine roots. Marika then cast flame magic once more and burned all the roots, marking the successful end of their task. The guild should send someone to confirm afterwards, so let's head to the next commission site, the Mangar mountain range. Under Vivian's guidance, they set off once again. This time, the journey was completely smooth, with no incidents occurring. If there was anything to say, it would be that, because Shane intentionally kept his distance, and perhaps due to his low presence, the interior of the carriage wasn't overwhelmingly somber anymore. After just completing the task, Marika seemed to have relaxed her tense nerves and started to talk much more, leading TL and Lumuya to also engage in conversation, easing the atmosphere somewhat. Naturally, Shane was not included in this interaction. Shane disregarded the interaction of the three girls, looking out of the window and thinking solely about magic. Under such circumstances, the carriage arrived at the Mangar mountain range before dusk. All right, we've arrived. Vivian stopped the carriage at the foot of the mountain, inviting Shane and the others to come out of the carriage, while she replenished the water and salt for the horses. Shane stepped out of the carriage and looked around, seeing a continuous stretch of mountains. That was the Mangar mountain range. We don't need to go deep, but since the sun will set soon, entering the Mangar mountain range now is undoubtedly unsuitable. So let's camp at the foot of the mountain. Vivian planned it this way. Camping. Shane looked over. That's right. Vivian looked at Shane and patiently said, nighttime is when most dangerous demons are active. Also, visibility during the night in the mountains is very low, so it's better not to engage in adventure activities. This way, we can avoid most accidents. Shane went silent, because he recalled how he spent those nights in a monster forest during those 10 days. That's right, camping is great. Camping is the best. I love camping. Coming to his senses, Shane firmly stated these words. Watching Shane's sudden change of attitude, Vivian was filled with confusion. At this moment, TL and the others finally disembarked from the carriage. Are we going to camp, Vivian? Lumia timidly asked this while glancing at Shane, a wary expression crossing her face. Isn't there an inn nearby the foot of the mountain where we can stay? Marika also voiced this concern, casting a glance at Shane, her previous nervousness reappearing in her eyes. As for TL, she didn't say a word, just slightly raised her head and seemed to glance at Shane from under her hood. Now it was Shane's turn to be filled with confusion. Of course, when these question marks popped up, it proved the problem wasn't with me, but with you all. What's the meaning of everyone glancing over here when camping is mentioned? Are you worried about a night attack? Shane immediately prepared to retort. However, Vivian seemed to sense something was amiss and quickly spoke up to stop him. The nearest inn is quite far. Even if we travel by carriage, we won't arrive until midnight. Plus, tomorrow morning, we would have to rush back from there, wasting a lot of time. If we missed the activation of the magic source, we'd lose another day. Considering this, let's camp here. After speaking, Vivian immediately took the luggage off the carriage's rack and handed several black, curtain-like tarps to TL and the others. Please set up the tents while I feed the horses, all right? Vivian gave TL and the others no chance to refuse. Vivian, TL spoke up, her voice unusually reproachful, as if she was displeased with Vivian's decision. However, Vivian gazed straight at TL. I think you understand, don't you? Vivian said to TL, her expression unusually serious. He hasn't done anything wrong. TL was rendered speechless. Not only TL, but even Lu Muya and Marika found themselves at a loss for words. The three of them looked at Shane again, but their gazes were no longer as rude. Lu Muya even appeared slightly apologetic. With that, the three carried the tarps away silently, preparing to pitch the tents. By the way, those tarps were actually magic tools. Once injected with magic power, they would automatically expand like heat expansion, transforming into tents. So setting up tents wouldn't require Shane's involvement, even though he's a man. Shane watched TL and the others leave, then turned to Vivian. Sorry for making you uncomfortable. Vivian apologized immediately, seeming a bit remorseful. In the past, we've had male adventurers assigned to our team by the Adventurers Guild a few times, and some of them took advantage of camping. Hearing this, Shane roughly understood what was going on. No wonder they're so wary of me. Shane mumbled, I really apologize. Vivian apologized again, sighed, and said somberly, though it's not our intention, we do attract excessive attention from men and male adventurers in various ways. Additionally, we're also adventurers, so it's inevitable to encounter some unavoidable troubles. So, I formed this team, gathering female adventurers who could face similar troubles from different aspects, hoping to dispel some bad intentions. Vivian was candid, even sharing this much. I guess it's understandable, Shane shrugged and said, but having me in this team, isn't that a bit bold of you or the guild? Maybe. Vivian didn't deny it, but said with a smile, however, we've considered the drawbacks and still made this decision, proving that you are indeed of such value. Value? Shane then looked at Vivian, half-jokingly saying, what value could I have? Could I be a hero? Hero? Vivian was momentarily stunned, then said with a wry smile, if you were a hero, we'd actually have a headache. This utterance left Shane equally stunned. Why? Shane asked in amazement. Don't you want to see a hero appear and defeat the Demon King? These words also stunned Vivian. And then, wasn't the Demon King defeated long ago? As this sentence echoed, the air fell silent. Shane's expression froze completely, his pupils constricted sharply, unable to conceal his shock. What did you say? At that moment, Shane couldn't help but speak out in shock. What's wrong? Vivian was instead startled by Shane's reaction. In nothing. Shane tried his best to suppress the shock in his heart, but couldn't help asking, did you say the Demon King was defeated long ago? Why, yes. Vivian looked at Shane with a face full of astonishment, seemingly trying to confirm his expression. After a while, perhaps noticing Shane wasn't joking, she spoke curiously. The Demon King was defeated by the hero of this Mitra kingdom 1,000 years ago in the war, and that's why the world has returned to peace. The adventurer profession emerged to address the manpower shortage caused by the war. Isn't this basic historical knowledge that even children know? Upon hearing this, Shane's expression turned unfavorable. No, it should be said it turned downright ugly. What's wrong with you? Shane's demeanor made Vivian appear somewhat worried, with a hint of unease in her tone. It's nothing. Shane wanted to say something, but ultimately held back. However, the question that needed to be asked, Shane still voiced. Can you explain this in detail to me? Shane made a request to Vivian. Vivian furrowed her brows, about to ask something, but stopped because of Shane's expression. Because at this moment, Shane's face showed a level of endurance she had never seen before. It was like he had discovered that the meaning of his life had gone astray, that he was about to walk down the wrong path, and that it was all due to deception by others, as if he had been betrayed, urgently needing to understand the truth. This made Vivian want to speak, but hold back, ultimately choosing silence. This is something everyone knows. Vivian began by saying this. You should know that since the world's inception, the divine race and demon clan have always been adversaries, sparking a long history of war, which subsequently led to the emergence of humans, elves, beastmen, dwarves, and even demons, right? In response to Vivian's question, Shane nodded. This was indeed the history of this world that Shane had learned from Nian. Vivian's explanation didn't differ from that of the goddess. Because the divine race was overall less powerful than the demon clan, and naturally limited in numbers, they have been at a disadvantage in wars since ancient times. Even though they successively created humans, elves, beastmen, and dwarves, they couldn't gain the upper hand against the ever-proliferating demon clan. So, in order to defeat the demon clan, the supreme god Omenes, the pinnacle of the divine race, ultimately created a ritual to summon the hero from another world, thus calling forth the hero. Heroes are naturally endowed with powerful unique skills and their own holy sword. Each demonstrates an astonishing potential. Even compared to the top-level demons, as long as they can grow, they can easily become stronger than them. Their participation always shifts the battle's tide, allowing the divine and human races to reverse the situation and gain the upper hand. Unfortunately, the demon clan still had a being at its pinnacle, the true monarch, the Demon King. The power of the Demon King was so great that even the supreme god Omenes was wary. Even a hero couldn't easily defeat the Demon King. Therefore, although several heroes emerged in history, momentarily reversing the battlefield situation, the divine race could never suppress the demon clan and win the war. Up until this point, Vivian's explanation did not deviate from Nian's account. Until, 1,000 years ago, the last hero, reputed to be the strongest in history, appeared. That hero possessed a holy sword and unique skills far stronger than any of his predecessors, easily overwhelming the strongest subordinates directly under the Demon King, and was finally brought before the Demon King with the aid of the divine and human races. Thus, the hero and the Demon King finally entered a decisive battle in the truest sense. That battle wasn't only the hero and Demon King, but also involved the supreme god at the pinnacle of the divine race, the other 3 highest goddesses, and the 6 great demons under the Demon King's command. The strongest among humans, elves, beastmen, and dwarves also joined that battle. In that battle, the hero defeated the Demon King. The Demon Clan was thoroughly defeated, and the divine race suffered heavy losses and could no longer sustain the war. Thus, under the hero's guidance, the divine and demon clans declared the war would cease and the world returned to peace. Later, to give the major races a chance to buffer their relations, the supreme god Omenes used his authority to divide the world into 3, leading the divine race to one of these worlds and naming it the Divine World. The Demon Clan also retreated to another world under the guidance of their surviving demons, transforming it into the Demon Realm. As for the various races making up the human race, including humans, elves, beastmen, and dwarves, they remained in this world, which became known as the human realm. Thus, a war that had lasted thousands, even tens of thousands of years, ended. The divine and demon clans became non-aggressive towards each other, and the human race, under the hero's leadership, began to recuperate. The hero himself founded a nation and became the king, which is this Mitra kingdom. Consequently, the war had ended 1,000 years ago, and the Demon King had long been defeated and no longer existed. Nowadays, the human, divine, and demon realms maintain mutual contact. The divine race still protects the human race, granting blessings to their children. The demon clan, too, maintains contact with the various kingdoms of the human realm to ensure the demon realm's prosperity. Even the divine and demon clans sometimes exchange resources. Though the hostility born from past wars hasn't been completely dismantled, it has eased somewhat. Perhaps 1,000 years from now, the 3 clans will have no divisions and coexist peacefully, a prospect that many people eagerly anticipate. Vivian's exposition left Shane utterly speechless. That hero, Shane's voice sounded somewhat hoarse. In response, Vivian looked at Shane for a long time before speaking. The hero hasn't appeared since the founding king of Mitra Kingdom passed away, and the divine race has sealed the hero summoning ritual, never using it again. That was only natural, wasn't it? Heroes were the divine race's trump card to defeat the demon king and, by extension, the demon clan. Now that the war has ended, and the three clans need to tread the path of peaceful coexistence, they are no longer necessary. In fact, if a hero were to appear again, it would be a significant problem, because that would indicate the divine race is once more preparing to strike the demon clan. Naturally, the demon clan wouldn't remain passive against a threat of such magnitude from the hero. At that time, the human race, too, couldn't stay uninvolved. Thus, if a hero appeared, the peace among the three clans would likely be shattered, and war might resurface. For this world, the hero is the greatest catalyst for war and must never appear again. Nightfall quietly descended. At the foot of the Mongol mountain range, Vivian's team had already set up their tents and lit a campfire to illuminate the surroundings. At this moment, led by Vivian, the girls of the team gathered around the campfire, their gazes cast to the side. There, Shane, with his back to them, was walking away into the distance. Watching Shane like this, Vivian's expression was filled with concern. Meanwhile, TL, Lu Muya, and Marika exchanged glances. Sister Vivian, Lu Muya shyly asked, "What's wrong with him?" Lu Muya voiced the question everyone was thinking. It was clear that everyone had noticed something amiss between Shane and Vivian. "You were just having a good conversation earlier, so why suddenly?" Marika spoke up too, though she didn't quite know how to describe it. In such circumstances, even TL cast an inquiring look at Vivian. To this, Vivian sighed. "I really don't know what's wrong," Vivian replied helplessly. For some reason, Shane suddenly became like that. Recalling the conversation from earlier, Vivian realized that after she mentioned the hero must never appear again, Shane fell completely silent and didn't say another word. No, Shane did say one more thing to Vivian afterward. "I'll take a short walk nearby." Leaving those words, Shane left just like that. Did I say something wrong? Vivian began to reflect. "I don't think it's your problem." TL spoke up in a calm manner, saying, "It should be that man's own issue, right?" TL's words were quite piercing. But that was TL, just as Shane had always felt, decisive, calm, and a bit taciturn. Even in Lamidjan, many male adventurers found her intimidating. On the other hand, with Shane not present, Lu Muya and Marika seemed more cheerful than before. Lu Muya still exhibited a shy demeanor, yet at least her speech no longer faltered and became more fluent. As for Marika, there was no need to say. Without the constraints, even her expression grew much lighter. This was the true nature of Vivian's team. Vivian was gentle and caring. TL was indifferent and taciturn. Lu Muya was timid and shy. Marika was quite lively, in contrast to her previously tense demeanor, though she had restrained this part of her personality upon Shane's arrival. Now that Shane was absent, Marika became less restrained. "Sister Vivian, are you worried about that man?" Marika asked Vivian enthusiastically. "Though you've always been so gentle, this time seems a bit different, doesn't it?" "Is that so?" Vivian appeared taken aback by this statement. "I feel the same way," Lu Muya said hesitantly, sneaking a glance at Vivian. It seems like Sister Vivian's attention toward Mr. Shane is even more than toward newcomers before. With Lu Muya pointing this out, Vivian couldn't deny the awareness. Though towards everyone, Vivian was generally gentle and caring, especially attentive to newcomers. This time, her attention toward Shane really seemed more than with other newbies before. It couldn't be helped. Ever since Shane defeated the golem, I felt there must be some secret we don't know about him. Vivian admitted candidly, saying, "While I don't know what secret that might be, I must say he indeed piqued my attention." Otherwise, Vivian would not have confided in Shane so quickly about the team situation nor protected Shane in front of the team. Even though she would have done the same for others, Vivian would definitely be more cautious in choosing the right moment to disclose the team members' conditions, and the extent of protection would not be as great as for Shane. After all, having only spent one day together, Vivian, no matter how gentle, would not normally give such consideration to a male she couldn't yet trust. Ultimately, she did so with Shane because she'd noticed something unusual about him. Moreover, I'm not quite like the usual humans or human race, right? Vivian's words quieted the girls. Vivian smiled slightly and continued. Due to my unique traits, I tend to develop special feelings towards some unusual individuals. The underlying meaning of Vivian's words was understood by TL and the others. So, that person gave you such a special feeling? TL looked at Vivian. That's right, Vivian nodded, saying, that's why I couldn't help but pay more attention to him, as he not only carries a secret, but a significant one. Vivian had some suspicions. Perhaps Shane is blessed by a very high-ranking god. Vivian asserted with certainty. That blessing feels even more advanced than Her Highness the Princess's, which compels me to pay extra attention. This statement stunned everyone. A blessing more advanced than Her Highness the Princess's? Lu Muya expressed her surprise. How is that possible? Indeed, it's not possible. TL remained silent for a moment, and then said quietly, Her Highness received the blessing of one of the 3 great goddesses. Such a higher blessing exists with only one entity in the entire divine race. Right, just one, Vivian said in a low voice. But since the war 1,000 years ago ended, that one has stayed secluded in the holy sanctuary at the world's edge, never appearing again. How could anyone possess their blessing? In fact, even in the distant past, no one had supposedly possessed that one's blessing. At least, Vivian had never heard of that supreme being bestowing their blessing upon anyone. But if not, then what is going on? It was precisely because of this question that Vivian couldn't help but pay more attention to Shane. TL and the others just began to understand what was happening. So, Mr. Shane isn't an ordinary person? Lu Muya asked in puzzlement. But didn't he fail to master any skill and only reached level 10 at age 20? A low-potential adventurer rookie? Precisely because of this, there was more possibility of secrets hidden within this person. At this moment, I might understand Sister Vivian's feeling. Marika suddenly spoke, hesitated a bit, and said, actually, I also felt something unusual about that person. You, Vivian, TL, and Lu Muya looked at Marika in surprise. Yeah, Marika said a bit bashfully, with hesitation in her words. For some reason, ever since we met, I felt from him a sort of, how should I say, a sense of closeness unusual for strangers. This was quite astonishing. After all, elves were known as a pure and sacred race, generally unlikely to feel such closeness toward unfamiliar males. Adding to that, having almost been offended by a male adventurer in the past, how could Marika possibly feel close to a stranger male adventurer? Yet, Shane evoked such a feeling in Marika. This sensation, if placed in one of the novels from Shane's previous life, might have become a signal of a romantic offer. But in truth, rather than feeling happy about such spontaneous emotions, Marika felt somewhat afraid. Because of this, Marika was overly tense in front of Shane. Perhaps this was the most genuine reaction of a truly pure woman. Vivian and others were all quite surprised. Even Marika feels that way. Lu Muya expressed her astonishment. TL seemed to frown slightly. Elves are beings born from nature, closest to nature and the world, even revered as the race nearest to the divine race. Vivian remarked with some astonishment, mumbling, to make an elf feel close from the start. Logically, only the divine race could do it. Could Shane be of the divine race? Impossible. Isn't the divine race all female? TL straightforwardly pointed out. That's right, Vivian nodded in affirmation. Since the first god born, the supreme god Omenes, is a goddess, and all other gods split their power from that goddess, acquiring respective jurisdictions and authorities, becoming life forms modeled after the supreme god Omenes. Hence all divines are goddesses, only goddesses. Thus, Shane was certainly not of the divine race. Then, who exactly was Shane? Recalling his earlier behavior and excessive reaction to Demon King and Hero, Vivian's eyes flickered. Could it be? Before Vivian could finish her thought, TL raised her head. Since that man is so special, what do you plan to do? TL asked anyway. What to do? Vivian came back to her senses, pondered for a moment, and said, "We don't need to do anything special. Just treat him as an ordinary newcomer and train him. Regardless of the secrets he bore, unless they could confirm it as something bad, Vivian didn't plan on delving too deeply. After all, doesn't everyone have a little secret of their own? Not to mention, Vivian herself had secrets unbeknownst to others. Not just Vivian, but even TL. Vivian glanced at TL, thought for a bit, and said, "Now that Shane's emotions seem a bit unstable, letting him act alone might be too dangerous. Could I trouble you to follow him secretly and protect him for now?" In response, TL didn't give a reply, but after a moment stood up and walked in the direction Shane had departed. Lu Muya and Marika watched TL and continued their conversation. As for Vivian, she couldn't help but think inwardly. I hope it's not what I think. Otherwise, this world might find itself in turmoil once again. In the somewhat dim forest path, a sigh sounded extraordinarily clear. Shane walked along this path, aimlessly moving forward while contemplating the absolutely unignorable new information he had just learned, unable to stop sighing. I originally thought I'd arrived in a world full of cliched plots. But what was happening now? Isn't this twist too sudden? At the very least, Shane hadn't recovered from the shock even now, because this meant one thing. Have I been deceived? Wasn't that exactly it? Even though the Demon King has been defeated and the world has been at peace for 1,000 years, under such circumstances, where is there a need for a hero to save the day? However, that goddess indeed used such a reason to resurrect Shane, who had died once, allowing him to awaken as a hero and descend into this world. What exactly does this mean? Shane was completely baffled. Even more so, Shane felt as if all his efforts thus far had been in vain. I became an adventurer specifically to achieve the goal of defeating the Demon King. Yes, Shane chose to become an adventurer not merely because he wanted to earn money. If making money was his only goal, Shane could have done as he did before, staying several days in the demon-infested forest, defeating numerous demons, and collecting their body materials to sell, without having to worry about livelihood. He didn't even need to specifically become an adventurer to level up and enhance his power. He could engage in constant battles with demons, ensuring his level would soar. In the end, Shane still chose to become an adventurer, not just because he was interested in this legendary, dreamlike, otherworldly profession, but also to establish himself in this world and ultimately achieve the goal of defeating the Demon King. Otherwise, as a newcomer to this world, how could Shane find and defeat the Demon King? Therefore, Shane needed information and channels through which he could obtain various kinds of information in this world without any hindrance. Becoming an adventurer was a good method for that. After all, from any story perspective, adventurers always need to travel far and wide, running around the world. With the Adventurers Guild as a widespread force across the world, Shane could fully integrate into the world using the identity of an adventurer and naturally obtain various kinds of information. Moreover, Shane also needed to address the issue of identity. Otherwise, it might not be an issue now, but once his level increased a bit and he became slightly more noticeable, Shane would likely enter the sight of various people and might be investigated by them. By then, if Shane lacked an identity, it was sure to cause all kinds of trouble. Hence, Shane could already foresee that if he didn't become an adventurer and simply remained anonymous, refraining from interacting with anyone while silently earning money and leveling up, others would doubt him sooner or later. At the very least, if Shane didn't become an adventurer, using Lemidgen as a base, entering and exiting the town there daily while bringing back a large amount of demon materials, even the gatekeeper would remember Shane's face, right? If it turned out that way, Shane was bound to arouse others' suspicions. When interested parties emerged and investigated him, his various anomalies would likely be exposed, potentially leading to the trouble of being discovered possessing the Holy Sword, ultimately outweighing the benefits. Considering those various issues, Shane chose to become an adventurer, using this identity as a springboard to integrate into the world and then make further plans. In this way, once his level was adequately high and the information sufficiently gathered, enabling him to defeat the Demon King. Shane could embark on his journey to achieve his goal. At that time, to roam freely in the world, Shane similarly needed an identity. Thus, Shane tread the path he walked today. Who would have thought? To die before achieving success. Now, the biggest goal had vanished. As a matter of personal feeling, Shane thought he could be at least a bit happy about this major information. Since the Demon King has already been defeated and the world has long returned to peace, I don't need to arduously fight with someone even the gods fear. I can peacefully embark upon my second life, living ordinarily as an adventurer. From this point of view, this matter was quite worthy of celebration. However, Shane didn't believe that the goddess who summoned him to this world did so merely for amusement, bringing him back to life and turning him into a hero. The goddess undoubtedly had a purpose in summoning Shane, there was no doubt about it. Moreover, the goddess used the already defeated Demon King as an excuse to deceive him. This gave Shane the feeling that he seemed to have been dragged into some unseen conspiracy. Well, such a development is a trope too, right? Shane took it in stride, as usual, adopting a helpless mentality to accept this unexpected situation. Additionally, it couldn't yet be confirmed that everything was just a conspiracy. Maybe the Demon King isn't dead, and Nian knew this, so she held the hero summoning ritual again. Who knows? Or perhaps, actually, after a millennium of recuperation, the Demon Clan intended to regain their honor after having been defeated by the Divine Race and planned to provoke another war, prompting Nian to conduct the hero summoning again. How about that as a setting? It's just for someone as gentle as Vivian to emphatically state that a hero cannot reappear. Surely the relationships among the three clans are indeed too fragile to allow a single bit of change. If the reappearance of a hero got exposed, no matter how much behind-the-scenes intrigue there was, the relationships among the three clans would inevitably become precarious. Just like Vivian said, no matter what, if the Demon Clan learned of the hero's existence, they would, no matter what, not let it slide, unable to ignore this threat. And once the human race knew the Divine Race conducted a hero summoning, they would surely suspect the Demon Clan of doing something, creating bias against them. Subsequently, perhaps the Divine Race might even want to use the hero's power to completely eradicate the former archenemy Demon Clan. In any world, ambition and malice are never lacking, and while there are those among the three clans who desire peace, some want to destroy it all. Once a hero's existence gets confirmed, Shane could easily imagine dozens of developments where interested parties use this as an opportunity and excuse to act as they will. I bet Vivian insists that a hero should not reappear because she knows this well. If a hero appeared, regardless of the reason, their mere presence would become the spark that shatters peace. And this is something most definitely no one wishes to see. So, does this world already not need a hero anymore? Shane sighed once more. At that moment, a voice reached his ears. Indeed, this world no longer needs a hero. Such a statement echoed in the dim forest, causing Shane to abruptly stop. Shane forcefully lifted his head and looked forward. In the next moment, Shane saw it. "Good evening, should I say that?" A melodious voice with a playful tone came from a young girl. A young girl in a dress that made her look like a princess, with black hair and red eyes, sat swinging on a tree branch ahead, while gently rocking her little feet and holding a dessert in both hands, nibbling on it bit by bit. This girl, Shane had seen before, and it was just yesterday. "Are you the poser from yesterday?" This sentence slipped directly from Shane's mouth. "Poser." The girl froze for a moment, then frowned unhappily, saying, "You can just call me Lisha, but the term poser, although I don't know what it means, I can sense it's not a good thing. Can you please not call me that?" Hearing this, Shane raised an eyebrow instead. "Is that okay?" Shane responded like Lisha just did, with a playful tone. "Didn't you say before that not just anyone could get your name?" "Indeed." Lisha looked at Shane, the unhappiness between her eyebrows vanishing, replaced by a hint of amused emotion, saying, "But I don't want you to run off like last time, so it's better to obediently give my name this time." Then, obediently named Lisha. "May I ask what you're doing in a place like this?" Shane questioned in a rare aggressive tone. Don't tell me it's a coincidence, okay? Perhaps because his earlier muttering had been overheard, Shane's bad mood was evident in his tone and attitude. However, Lisha didn't seem to mind at all. Just consider it a coincidence, Lisha replied to Shane with an upbeat tone. If it wasn't a coincidence, how could I hear such interesting words? Sure enough, Lisha had clearly heard Shane's earlier words. I was merely passing through Limijan during my escape, and didn't expect to encounter such a thing. Lisha stared directly at Shane, as if trying to see through all his secrets, saying, however, thanks to this, it seems there will be unexpected gains this time. In just a few words, Shane was made aware that the opponent was indeed here for him. Maybe after yesterday's meeting, Lisha had been watching Shane, even following him to this extent. In other words, have I been followed? Shane muttered aloud. Lisha made no response, only smiling to herself, her gaze at Shane becoming more intriguing. Like last time, you seem to be saying something very interesting again, Lisha said with a playful smile. This time, what you said is true. The world no longer needs a hero. Isn't that sad? Sad. Shane squinted his eyes, pretending to be puzzled, but also said sincerely, why should I be sad? Just looking at the fact, Shane could hardly be happier. If the world doesn't need a hero, then he could discard this responsibility, living unrestrained, right? It's just, are you worried about being caught in a conspiracy whirlpool? Lisha saw through Shane's heart in one glance, saying, not knowing why the divine race would summon yourself, or what the situation among the three clans is. Simply put, there is a severe lack of information, so you don't know which side to trust. Am I wrong? New hero. As Lisha's words fell, the atmosphere suddenly became insufferably heavy. Shane, too, abandoned any hope of fortune, because the reality was very clear. His identity had been exposed. Aren't you going to take out the holy sword from the package on your back? Lisha taunted. If you don't use the holy sword, with just your current level, you won't stand a chance against me, you know? Opponent. Shane met Lisha's eyes, asking, are you here to deal with me? What? Lisha continued, smiling teasingly. Is that strange? Of course it's strange. Shane ignored Lisha's taunt and retorted directly. If you were truly here to deal with me, I would have already detected your presence. After all, Shane possessed a skill like enemy detection, which allowed him to sense targets with animosity towards him. Under such circumstances, if someone approached with hostility, Shane would have detected them long ago. However, Shane didn't detect Lisha's presence in time. This proved the opponent bore no hostility towards Shane. Of course, aren't you a bit too naive, my lord hero? Lisha seemed amused, though the laughter in her eyes began to fade. Indeed, I harbored no animosity toward you. But there's no need for animosity to engage in battle in this world. Like me, if I just want to test your real ability, not to be your enemy, don't you think that's already adequate reason to deal with you? As the words fell, magic power like an inky whirlwind rose from Lisha's body. That magic power stirred up a gust, sweeping in all directions, making the surrounding trees sway with a rustle, while the fallen leaves flew erratically. Shane's heart tensed, and he drew his weapon without hesitation. The weapon drawn wasn't the holy sword, but the broad blade sword Shane wore at his waist. In the next instant, boom! The magic power rising from Lisha's body transformed into gravity, impacting the entire world like a field, and pressed down on Shane. In an instant, the leaves that flew in the air were all pressed toward the ground, and the surrounding trees seemed to be held by invisible forces, creaking and snapping inch by inch. Shane also felt his entire body being pressed by an astonishing gravity toward the ground. Without exception, this gravity should have sufficed to pin Shane to the ground. But whether it was the magic resistance skill or the abnormal state resistance skill that took effect, the gravity acting on Shane abruptly weakened before pressing him to the ground. Seeing this, Lisha voiced extreme surprise. Resisted my gravity magic without using the holy sword. This point took Lisha completely by surprise. Unfortunately, at this point, it was already too late for surprise. Evolve. Shane resolutely and swiftly activated the extreme transformation skill the instant the gravity weakened. Immediately, magic power flowed through his body, causing Shane's strength to escalate dramatically. Boom! And so, Shane crushed the ground with a muffled noise and shot toward Lisha's direction like a rocket, defying the gravity. Since the opponent had already made a move, there was no need for any hesitation here. This showcased Shane's decisiveness brought about by his strong adaptability and the ruthlessness honed in the forest over 10 days. Seeing this, Lisha was not alarmed, but rather amused. Boom! In the silent forest path, a thunderous noise suddenly erupted without any warning. The strong wind blew like a storm, mixed with dust, flying all over the sky spectacularly. Amidst the explosive wind, two figures shot out one after the other. Lisha seemed to be flying backward, sweeping backward while extending a hand forward. Amidst a sweet shout, she released her magic power. That magic power transformed into a tangible gravity wave, like an invisible dark current gushing from a black hole, blasting towards the oncoming Shane. Shane naturally couldn't see the invisible gravity wave. This might be the tricky part of this magic, making it hard to guard against. However, it didn't matter even if he couldn't see the gravity wave, because Shane had the evasion skill, coupled with the combat intuition and combat instinct brought by the military god skill. He didn't need to do anything. His body naturally moved to the side, dodging the unseen magic bomb. Bang! The powerful gravity wave grazed Shane's body and struck empty, hitting the ground, blowing that area apart. Shane then directly rode the explosive wave, accelerating through the rising sand and dust, and shot towards Lisha. In the next instant, the broad blade sword, like a falling thunder, cut through with a cold arc, mercilessly aiming at the girl in front. Clang! A loud strike, reminiscent of a bell toll, appeared between the dueling man and woman. Shane's merciless slash was blocked by Lisha's slender and beautiful hand. Lisha, with her bare hand, blocked Shane's slashing, letting a bell-like sound of collision resonate. Shane felt that his slash had hit something soft and watery, unable to exert any force. Looking closely, in front of Lisha's raised palm, unknown to when, a circle of continuously rotating and fluctuating magic power emerged. That magic power also transformed into gravity, as if countless currents of gravity waves were churning, forming a turbulent gravity stream. Shane's strike didn't hit Lisha's hand, but fell into that turbulent gravity, like a stone being constantly washed in irregular rapids, unable to fall, rise, or drift in any direction, only swaying uncertainly. The bell-like clanging wasn't the sound of hitting something hard, but the vibration noise produced by the blade of the broad blade sword swaying at high speeds within the turbulent gravity. It could be imagined how amazing the magic used by Lisha was. However, Lisha looked puzzled. "Are you really just a level 10 newbie adventurer?" Lisha asked in extreme astonishment. "Having such power without using the holy sword, how did you do it?" Upon hearing this, Shane responded with a smile devoid of any humor. "This sentence should be mine to say, right?" Shane said with a half smile, half sneer. "Isn't magic supposed to require chanting a long spell to use? What's with your ability to freely cast magic with just a wave of your hand?" With that, Shane, not waiting for Lisha's reply, suddenly freed a hand, grabbed the bag slung over his shoulder, and hurled it as a blunt weapon viciously towards Lisha. Lisha casually withdrew the turbulent gravity and herself floated like a light leaf, seemingly having changed the gravity of herself and her surroundings. She flew away like a kite, pulling away from Shane. As long as the chanting skills level is high enough, you can abandon chanting to a certain extent and cast magic directly, you know? Lisha said with a smile. Of course, even with a high chanting skill level, typically you'd still have to chant the magic name for it to activate. My situation is a result of a unique skill, allowing me to cast magic with just a thought, as long as there's enough magic power. In other words, as long as there's sufficient magic power, You can infinitely instant cast magic? Well, such a setting often appears anyway. Shane slung the bag back over his shoulder, lifted the broad blade sword with one hand, and pointed it at Lisha. In response, Lisha still had a light smile. Speaking of which, heroes aside from the Holy Sword also possess extraordinary unique skills, right? Lisha observed Shane with interest. For you to be this strong at level 10, is it the result of a unique skill? Before this question received an answer, Lisha's expression suddenly hardened as she floated into the air. Boom! A heavy broad-blade sword immediately sliced through the air, crashing down fiercely at the spot Lisha occupied a second ago, striking the ground and shattering the rock there, embedding among the flying rubble and gravel, stirring up a sound of explosion. Shane had thrown his weapon, nearly hitting Lisha. Hey, that's dangerous, you know. Floating mid-air, Lisha shouted angrily at Shane, who maintained his throwing posture. Were you expecting me to seriously explain my abilities during this battle like you? Shane, looking at Lisha as if she were a fool, said, Don't you know that those who can act shouldn't talk much, and villains usually die from speaking too much? Saying this, Shane suddenly raised an eyebrow and leaped to the side. Boom! An explosion sound identical to before echoed around, reverberating through the surroundings. An invisible gravity wave blasted the position Shane occupied earlier, blowing away the dust there. So sneaky. Leaping aside to evade the strike, Shane couldn't help but scold. Do you have the right to say that to me? Mid-air, Lisha couldn't help but retort. The two, like jesters, had a dialogue that seemed utterly nonchalant. Yet, while they engaged in conversation, their hands showed no mercy in battle. Boom, 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 boom. In the continuous explosion sounds, countless gravity waves bombarded like a barrage, stirring explosion after explosion, sending dust and explosive wind swirling continuously. In the face of this continuous bombardment, Shane swept through like a ghost, moving swiftly and deftly to dodge all of Lisha's attacks, successfully retrieving his broad blade sword. He leapt up, rocketing towards the sky, slashing at Lisha like a shooting star. Lisha, relying on her gravity manipulation through gravity magic, constantly dodged Shane's slashes. When she couldn't evade, she would stir up turbulent gravity to either disturb Shane's form, preventing him from approaching, or deflect Shane's sword and neutralize his slashes. Thus, the fluctuation of magic rampaged, and the slicing light of the broad blade sword brought about bursts of blade lights dancing rapidly. Their battle was extremely fierce, yet neither could gain an upper hand over the other. I already said, with your current level, you can't deal with me without using the Holy Sword, Lisha declared. Although I didn't expect you to exhibit such power without using the Holy Sword, it won't be enough to defeat me with just this. All right, draw the Holy Sword. Let me witness how powerful the hero of 1,000 years is. Upon hearing this, Shane responded with, Do I look like such a compliant protagonist to you? Just because you say to use it, I should? Leaving aside the question of whether saving face is important, just thinking about whether there are any traps or schemes within is enough to make someone hesitate. Shane always thought protagonists who would immediately comply with a provocation or taunt from their opponent had something wrong with their heads. Therefore, no, I won't. This man, watching Shane continue to charge at her with his broad blade sword, Lisha felt both irritated and helpless. Last time, and this time too, does this man really enjoy doing unexpected things that much? Although it was indeed interesting, Lisha felt quite helpless, unable to make him use the Holy Sword as she wished. Can't he just follow the mood for once? Of course, the other party's concerns couldn't be said to be entirely pointless. At least, Lisha had her own reasons for wanting to force Shane to bring out the Holy Sword. Since her intentions were so obvious, it seemed only natural that he wouldn't act according to her wishes. However, just as Lisha said, without using the Holy Sword, Shane, with his current level, wouldn't be able to deal with her at all. Because I haven't shown any hostility towards him, he didn't seriously plan to bring out all his means, right? If Lisha truly showed an intention to kill, then naturally he wouldn't continue to withhold his trump card like this. Though he doesn't seem like a hero at all, he doesn't show the slightest bit of confusion in his eyes. Normally speaking, upon discovering that the Demon King had already been defeated, that his identity as a hero might become the spark of war, and that his summoning might mark the beginning of some grand conspiracy, anyone would naturally feel uneasy. Yet, this newly arrived hero, even while brooding over this matter, didn't seem particularly confused. It wasn't that he possessed an exceptionally strong will, nor was it because his mind was particularly calm and composed. Instead, it was due to an oddly unusual ability to accept things. Hence, this newly arrived hero might continue to brood over this matter, but he definitely wouldn't be confused, right? This suggested that he didn't have a strong sense of mission about defeating the Demon King. I've heard that these otherworldly heroes were summoned to this world after dying and were resurrected to help the divine race defeat the Demon King in exchange for revival. Perhaps the man before her simply viewed this as a straightforward transaction or possibly an act of gratitude. Thus, it was quite normal for him not to be obsessed with it. With such a capacity for acceptance, if Lisha displayed real hostility, he certainly wouldn't hesitate to draw the holy sword. Right? What a hassle! With this in mind, Lisha closed her eyes briefly, then slowly opened them again. Shane, who was preparing to charge at Lisha once more, suddenly halted, because Shane's enemy detection skill went into overdrive, transforming into an unmistakable warning and sweeping over his entire body. Boom! At the same time, in front of Shane, the air around Lisha, who was floating in midair, exploded with turbulence. Magic power, far more terrifying than before, started to burn steadily from this young girl's body. Isn't it about time we stop playing around, hero? As Lisha spoke these words, not only did her whole body exude an astonishing amount of magic power, but her gaze and expression also became incredibly cold. Compared to earlier, she seemed like a completely different person. Feeling the warning signals fed back from his enemy detection skill, Shane understood. From this moment on, she truly harbored hostility towards him. No, it should be said killing intent. Impatient, are we? Shane let out a smile. Indeed, I've grown tired of playing. Lisha said indifferently. From now on, I'll be acting with the intention of killing you. If you still don't care, then continue to hide your holy sword. Those words earned her nothing but an amused smirk from Shane. Shane no longer moved to attack Lisha, standing there calmly. If you can manage it, go ahead and try. That response was all he needed. Seeing Shane still not intending to use the holy sword, Lisha felt both annoyed and furious. Well, don't regret it later. Saying this, Lisha extended a hand toward Shane. I use many kinds of magic, but my most powerful are two. Lisha spoke. One is gravity magic. The other is space magic. These two magics were Lisha's greatest trump cards, especially space magic. Whether it's for attack, defense, binding, or movement, it's at the forefront of all types of magic. Like this. Lisha aimed her outstretched hand at Shane. Buzz! Suddenly, the space around Shane seemed to ripple, filled with an inexplicable sense of oppression. Shane felt as though he was pinned in place, unable to move. This magic directly fixes the space itself. Once done, the fixed space doesn't change anymore, as if turning into a solid stone, and nothing inside can move or shift. Unless you can shatter the space itself, once you're trapped, there's no escape. Lisha explained mercilessly. Of course, if the magic space skill level is high enough, it's not just fixing it. Things like twisting space, space movement, and even cutting space can be achieved. Even space annihilation is possible. These words sent a chill through one's heart. So, still not planning to draw your holy sword? Lisha reaffirmed. No, it should be said, she issued a final warning. However, inside that fixed space, Shane continued to look at Lisha. The playful emotion in his eyes remained unchanged. How foolish. Lisha's gaze grew cold as she hesitated no longer. Snap! With Lisha snapping her fingers, the world around them changed. The piece of space where Shane stood was engulfed as if swallowed by a black hole, instantly transforming into a black box. Boom! Immediately, the black box shattered, causing that piece of space to vanish completely. Inside the space, everything, including the earth and soil, seemed to have been excavated out of thin air, leaving only a dark pit. Until, bang, a second shattering sound resounded. What? In midair, Lisha showed a stunned expression, because space annihilation does sound quite terrifying. From the black pit, a figure emerged as if he had appeared out of the broken space. Shane stood there unscathed, speaking cheerfully. Too bad magic is ineffective against me. Indeed, magic was ineffective against Shane. Not only magic, but even physical attacks had little effect on him. After all, both physical resistance and magic resistance had been trained by Shane to level 10, practically nullifying all physical and magical attacks. Lisha had gotten one thing wrong. To deal with you, I don't even need to use the Holy Sword. Even without the power of the Holy Sword, Shane was extremely difficult to kill. Can't handle you without the Holy Sword? Perhaps that's the case. But that doesn't mean you can handle me, Miss Show-Off. That was the reason Shane was utterly fearless. At this moment, Lisha truly wavered. I couldn't believe he nullified the annihilation of space. No, that's not right. It wasn't nullification, but resistance. If it were nullification, the opponent should have unleashed a powerful magic, at least as strong as her own, to possibly achieve that. However, the opponent did no such thing. He merely resisted Lisha's magic. Could it be he has learned resistance skills? Resistance skills. These are considered the highest echelon of skills within the defense series. Typically, defense skills aim to enhance defensive power, allowing the user to endure damage, thereby preventing it from reaching the user at all. For instance, if a person could only withstand attacks of level 10, acquiring a defense skill would boost this defensive power, making it possible to withstand attacks up to level 20 or even level 30. But resistance skills differed. Resistance skills didn't increase defensive power nor allow the user to endure damage by defense, but directly weakened the damage inflicted upon a user. This was entirely different in meaning from the former. If it were the former, no matter how much defensive power was stacked, eventually an attack with greater power would get through, being described as breaking defense. However, resistance skills were different. No matter how strong the opponent's attack power was, resistance skills could directly weaken the damage itself. And the higher the skill level, the more the damage could be weakened. In other words, the former had a so-called limit of endurance, while the latter had none. Whether the damage was level 1 or level 100, it could be reduced equally. The catch was that to learn resistance skills, one must continually endure damage and develop resistance and immunity to certain types of damage, which was extremely challenging. Therefore, resistance skills were the toughest to acquire among defense skills, but also the most potent defensive skill. Since Shane could resist the magic of space annihilation, unless he used some rare unique skill or special skill or a legendary grade magic tool. The only possibility was that he had acquired resistance skills that could weaken magic damage. The problem is, but that's upper-level magic cast using level 7 magic space skill. Even with resistance skills, resisting some damage was understandable, but rendering it completely ineffective. What level of skill must Shane have reached to achieve that? It would at least have to match the leveled magic space skill, which was at level 7. And Lisha had the aid of a unique skill, not only eliminating the chanting requirement, but also augmenting the effects of magic. Thus, unless the opponent had level 8 or even level 9 resistance skills, it was absolutely impossible to do this. But this man was just level 10. At only level 10, how could he possibly have acquired such high-level and challenging skills? It must be that he used a unique skill or the power of the Holy Sword. It's said that heroes' holy swords possess various astonishing effects. For example, they can enhance the user's level. For example, they can enhance the user's skills. Moreover, they can help the user withstand damage, akin to resistance skills, directly granting immunity to some extent of damage. There are legends depicting heroes, while resisting powerful figures of the demon clan, leveraging the holy sword protection to have any attack from the demon clan get partially nullified. Especially the hero who defeated the demon king a millennium ago, who could even nullify half of any opponent's damage. This was still regarded as a legend, written in legendary folklore and even various novels. In that case, Shane must have used the holy sword. Lisha was certain of this, yet couldn't help but gaze at the bundle Shane always carried on his shoulder. The bundle showed no signs of having ever been opened. This caused Lisha to waver once more. On the ground, Shane, who clearly witnessed this scene, his eyes shone bright. A good opportunity. Taking advantage of the opponent's wavering, he intended to strike hard while he could. Shane made this decision without any psychological burden. However, at that moment, Lisha seemed to suppress her wavering emotions and breathe out. It seems it's not only the holy sword. Your unique skill is substantially powerful as well. Lisha said such words. Clearly, in the end, Lisha attributed the cause to the strength of the hero's unique skill. Just as you said, I likely can't deal with you. Lisha gave Shane a deep look and said, You are more extraordinary than I imagined, perhaps even more so than the hero who defeated the Demon King a millennium ago. At this point, Lisha paused, then sighed once more. Let's end it here for today. Lisha withdrew all her magic power, her expression returning to its prior state. Are you trying to run? Shane instantly provoked. Do you wish to detain me? Lisha smiled mysteriously. Better not. Even if you use the holy sword, defeating me is possible, but stopping me from leaving is absolutely impossible. After all, Lisha knew space magic. With a single spatial move, Lisha could easily escape the battlefield. But you don't need to worry I'll run away. I simply don't wish to continue fighting with you. Lisha took out an envelope that seemed like an invitation from her chest and tossed it in Shane's direction. Shane watched this scene, then let the envelope fall to the ground. Why not catch it? Lisha couldn't help but complain again. And Shane's response was strong. Seeing the enemy who just tried to kill me toss something over and then catch it, isn't that foolish? Shane retorted like that. Given the atmosphere, perhaps naturally catching it might be the most suave, as is often depicted in novels, but Shane often thought when reading novels before. What if the thing tossed was a bomb? Thus, Shane subconsciously resisted. You. Lisha was infuriated by the retort. Her chest heaved, which instead somewhat captured Shane's attention. Have to say, this girl's figure was quite good. Forget it. Lisha gritted her teeth. I'll return to Lamidjan. If you wish to meet me, come directly to the address written above. After saying this, as if worried Shane would act out of line again, Lisha shouted repeatedly, Remember to come, or you'll regret it. Leaving such words, Lisha turned, seemingly merging into space, and vanished without a trace. Shane steadfastly watched the spot where his opponent disappeared until he finally relaxed his shoulders, shifted his gaze, and looked at the invitation letter that had fallen on the ground. Regret? Felt like if he simply went to find the other party, he would be the one regretting it. That seemed like a rhythm leading into a new, troublesome matter. Shane didn't forget that Lisha mentioned when she first appeared that she had escaped to Lamidjan. Consorting with a fugitive? Troublesome. Quite troublesome. So, sand, a handful of dirt flew over, burying that conspicuous invitation letter. This way, there's nothing to worry about. Shane, as if nothing had happened, stretched his body, turned around, and left the place. However, after Shane had left, a figure appeared silently and dug that invitation letter out from the dirt. The girl in the black robe simply watched Shane leave, remaining silent for a long, long time.